The RPG screamed across the desert sky, and Lieutenant Graves smiled. He watched through his scope as the American contractor's vehicle erupted in flames, trapping the man inside the burning wreckage. The screams carried on the wind. Graves lowered his rifle, his face twisted with satisfaction. This was his desert now, his kill zone, and he'd already buried 17 coalition soldiers in the sand. His spotter laughed beside him, counting the seconds until the rescue team would arrive, walking straight into the carefully laid trap. Graves checked his watch. Any minute now, the SEALs would come running to save their precious contractor, and when they did, he'd add their tags to his collection. He'd been waiting 3 months for this. The Americans thought they owned this desert. He was about to teach them otherwise. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button right now. You need to see how this ends. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. The Blackhawks' rotors beat against the desert air like a war drum, and Marcus Hale felt every vibration in his chest. 22 years with the teams, and he could still taste the metal fear before a hot extraction. He stood on the tarmac at Forward Operating Base Phantom, watching the horizon shimmer with heat waves, mentally running through the mission parameters for the 14th time. 42 kilometers behind enemy lines. Hostage extraction, high probability of contact. 3 hours until wheels up. Sir, she's here. Marcus turned to see Petty Officer Second Class Jake Devlin, his primary marksman, standing with his arms crossed and his face arranged in that particular expression of disgust that special operators reserve for the truly unbelievable. Marcus followed Devlin's gaze to the Black Hawk that was just touching down, rotors still screaming, and saw her. She couldn't have been more than 5'6". The flight suit hung on her like she'd borrowed it from her older brother. When she stepped off the bird, she had to lean against the rotor wash, and for a moment, Marcus thought she might actually blow away across the tarmac. She carried a rifle case that was almost as tall as she was, moving with that careful deliberation of someone who knew everyone was watching. "You've got to be kidding me," Devlin said, and there was real anger in his voice now. "That's our Overwatch Marcus. She looks like she should be pledging a sorority, not running ops behind enemy lines." Marcus watched her cross the tarmac. She didn't look at anyone, didn't acknowledge the stares, just kept walking toward the operations building with her head down and that oversized case gripped in both hands. "That's what Langley sent us," Marcus said quietly. "Langley's lost their minds." Devlin spat into the sand. "We've got a hot extraction in hostile territory, and they sent us a teenager with a hunting rifle. What's next? Boy Scouts with BB guns. Can it, Devlin?" But Marcus understood the anger. He'd read Emily Carter's file 3 times, and it still didn't make sense. 19 years old, 6 months out of advanced training, 0 combat deployments. And now she was supposed to provide overwatch for one of the most dangerous operations they'd run all year. The math didn't add up, and in this business, when the math didn't add up, people died. The team was already assembled in the briefing room when Marcus walked in. 6 hard men who'd earned their tridents in blood and sand, who'd been running operations together for 3 years. They moved like parts of the same machine, and now they were supposed to trust their lives to a kid who probably still got carded at bars. Emily Carter sat in the back corner, still holding that rifle case. She'd found the least visible chair in the room and folded herself into it like she was trying to disappear. Marcus watched her for a moment. She wasn't looking at anyone, wasn't trying to make eye contact or introduce herself. Smart maybe, or just terrified. "Listen up," Marcus started, but Devlin was already talking. "Hey, new girl, you lost. The Army recruiting office is 3 buildings down." A few snickers. Emily didn't react, didn't even look up. "I said listen up," Marcus repeated harder this time. The room went quiet. "We've got a contractor pinned down at coordinates we're calling Objective Rattlesnake. Thomas McKinley, civilian engineer, got separated from his convoy 42 kilometers northwest of here. Last contact was 18 hours ago. He's holed up in an abandoned compound, and we've got maybe a 6-hour window before the local militia finds him." Marcus pulled up the satellite imagery on the screen. The compound sat in a natural depression, surrounded by low hills and 3 kilometers of open desert on all sides. "It's a kill box," said Chief Petty Officer Raymond Walsh, the team's breacher. "They could have 100 guys in those hills, and we'd never see them until we were already dead." "That's why we're bringing Overwatch," Marcus said, and he could feel every eye in the room shift to Emily. "Carter will position here on this ridge 3 kilometers southeast. She'll have eyes on the entire approach and the compound itself. Devlin laughed. It wasn't a friendly sound. 3 kilometers, Marcus. I can barely make that shot with perfect conditions and a spotter. You're telling me the kid's going to cover us from 3 clicks away with what, her daddy's deer rifle? Emily spoke for the first time, and her voice was so quiet Marcus almost missed it. 3,200 meters, and it's a Remington 700. The room went dead silent. Devlin stared at her like she'd just spoken Martian. What did you just say? Emily looked up, and Marcus saw something in her eyes that surprised him. Not fear, not anger, just a flat, calm assessment like she was looking at a math problem. The ridge is 3,200 meters from the compound's north entrance, and it's a Remington 700, not a deer rifle. Modified, action, custom barrel, hand-loaded rounds. I built it myself. Devlin stood up. You built it yourself. You're 19 years old and you built a precision rifle yourself. And now you're going to shoot 3,000 meters in desert conditions with heat shimmer and crosswinds and save all our lives if things go sideways. Is that about right? If things go sideways, yes, sir. Don't call me sir. I work for a living. Devlin looked at Marcus. This is insane. We should be calling this off until we get real support. Marcus felt the tension in the room like a physical weight. He'd been in situations like this before. Teams fragmented when trust broke down, and trust broke down when people didn't believe in each other's capabilities. He could see it happening now, see the team looking at Emily like she was a liability instead of an asset. The mission is a go, Marcus said firmly. Carter's been assigned as our overwatch, and that's final. Devlin, if you have a problem with that, you can take it up with command after we get back. If we get back, Devlin muttered, but he sat down. Marcus continued the briefing, laying out the movement plan, the extraction route, the contingencies if they hit contact. But he could feel the room's attention drifting. They were all thinking the same thing, wondering if the kid in the back corner with her homemade rifle was going to get them all killed. When the briefing ended, the team filed out, already moving into their pre-mission rituals. Equipment checks, weapon maintenance, the small personal ceremonies that kept men sane before walking into hell. Emily stayed in her chair, still holding that rifle case. Marcus walked over at her. Up close, she looked even younger. No makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Hands that showed calluses from rifle work, but were still too smooth, too unmarked by the kind of hard living that aged operators before their time. You know they don't trust you, Marcus said quietly. Yes, sir. You know why? Because I'm 19 and I've never been in combat, and they think I'm going to get someone killed. Marcus nodded slowly. That's about right. So here's the question, Carter. Are they right to think that Emily finally looked up at him, and Marcus saw something that made him reconsider his entire assessment? Her eyes weren't young, weren't naive or scared or uncertain. They were the eyes of someone who'd already calculated every angle, assessed every risk, and made peace with the consequences. No, sir, she said. They're not. How can you be sure? Because I don't miss. It should have sounded like arrogance, like the kind of bravado that got people killed. But Emily said it the same way someone might say the sky is blue or water is wet, a simple statement of observable fact. Show me the rifle, Marcus said. Emily hesitated, then opened the case. The weapon inside was beautiful in the way that pure function is beautiful. The Remington 700 had been completely rebuilt. Custom stock match-grade barrel, a scope that probably cost more than Marcus's truck. Every surface showed the kind of obsessive attention to detail that separated amateurs from artists. You really built this yourself. Started when I was 14. Took me 3 years to get it right. Emily ran her hand along the barrel, and Marcus saw real affection in the gesture. My grandfather was a gunsmith, Marine sniper in Vietnam. He taught me everything. Wind reading ballistics, how to read terrain. He said a rifle is just math and patience, and if you understand both, you can make any shot. Your grandfather sounds like a smart man. He was, died 2 years ago, pancreatic cancer. Emily closed the case gently. He made me promise I'd use what he taught me. Said skills like that are too important to waste. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You know what happens if you're wrong out there, if you can't make the shots you're claiming you can make? People die. Your people. Maybe the contractor too. And you're okay with that responsibility. Emily looked at him again with those old eyes. I'm okay with doing my job, sir. Whether other people believe I can do it or not, that's their problem, not mine. There was a knock at the door. Devlin stuck his head and saw Marcus and Emily, and his expression soured. We're doing final equipment checks in 30 minutes. Unless you want to push the op back so the new girl can practice with her toy. Marcus ignored the jab. We'll be there. Carter, get your gear squared away. I want you on the range in 20 minutes. You're going to show me what that rifle can do. Emily stood picking up the case. What range do you want me to shoot? How far can you reach with that thing? In perfect conditions, 1,800 meters confirmed, maybe 2,000 if the wind cooperates. We don't have perfect conditions. We have desert heat and crosswinds and the possibility that you'll need to engage targets at extreme range under pressure. So show me what you can do in bad conditions. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood on the range with the team. Word had spread that the new girl was going to shoot, and apparently everyone wanted to watch the show. Emily set up on the firing line, working with methodical precision. She didn't hurry, didn't showboat, just assembled her rifle, checked the scope, and settled into position. Target is 1,200 meters, the range officer called. Standard size silhouette, wind is gusting 8 to 12 miles per hour from the northwest. Emily didn't respond. She was already looking through the scope, her breathing slow and even. Marcus watched her, looking for signs of nervousness, shaking hands, rapid breathing, the small tells that indicated someone was feeling the pressure. He saw nothing. Emily might as well have been sitting in a library. Whenever you're ready, Carter, Marcus said. Emily's finger touched the trigger. There was a long moment of absolute stillness, and then the rifle cracked. Downrange, the target's head snapped back. Center mass, the range officer called. Dead center? Again, Marcus said. Emily worked the bolt, chambered another round. The rifle cracked. The target took another hit, this one slightly left of center. Wind gust, Emily said quietly, pushed it 4 inches. Devlin snorted. 4 inches at 1,200 meters is a miss in combat. Emily didn't respond. She was already adjusting, making minute changes to her position. The rifle cracked again. Perfect center mass. Move the target to 1,500, Marcus ordered. The range officer looked surprised. Sir, that's beyond our standard range. We don't even have markers out that far. Then estimate it. Move the target. They moved the target, setting it up at what the range officer swore was close to 1,500 meters. Marcus couldn't even see it clearly with his naked eye. Through binoculars, it was a vague shape shimmering in the heat. Emily adjusted her scope, took her time, and fired. The target went down. Hit, the range officer called, sounding amazed. Upper chest. Marcus looked at Devlin. The marksman's face had gone from skeptical to carefully neutral. He was watching Emily now with the attention of a professional, and Marcus knew what he was seeing. Perfect form, no wasted motion, the kind of discipline that came from thousands of hours of practice. 1,500 meters in desert conditions, Marcus said quietly. With a rifle she built herself. Still thinks she's just playing with a toy. Devlin didn't answer immediately. He walked down to the firing line, stood over Emily. What's your record real distance, not range time? Emily looked up at him. 2,100 meters. Confirmed hit. Wyoming 6 months ago. Target was a coyote that had been killing ranchers' sheep. A coyote? Yes, sir. That's not a person. That's not someone shooting back at you. No, sir, it's not. But physics doesn't care about psychology. The math is the math, whether you're scared or not. Devlin stared at her for a long moment, then walked back to Marcus. She can shoot, he admitted grudgingly. I'll give her that. But shooting at the range isn't the same as combat. She freezes up out there. We're all dead. Marcus nodded. He knew Devlin was right. But he also knew they didn't have a choice. Emily Carter was what command had given them, and the mission clock was ticking. They had 4 hours until insertion, and they needed to move. All right, Marcus called to the team. Final equipment checks, then we brief the infiltration route. We move at 2,100 hours. Carter, you'll insert with Walsh's fire team and move to the overwatch position. Radio check every 30 minutes until we begin the approach. The team dispersed, moving with purpose now. Emily packed her rifle with the same careful precision she'd used to assemble it. Marcus watched her for a moment, then made a decision. Carter, walk with me. They moved away from the range into the relative quiet of the equipment yard. The sun was setting now, painting the desert in shades of orange and red. It would have been beautiful if Marcus's mind wasn't already on the mission running through failure scenarios and backup plans. You need to understand something, Marcus said. Those men in there, they're not being cruel. They're being realistic. We've lost people before, good people, and every time it has been, it was because someone wasn't ready, someone wasn't capable, someone froze when it mattered. So when they look at you and see a 19-year-old kid with no combat experience, they're not seeing you. They're seeing everyone we've buried. Emily nodded slowly. I understand, sir. Do you? Because understanding it academically and dealing with it emotionally are two different things. When we're out there and Devlin questions your judgment, when Walsh ignores your call because he doesn't trust your assessment, you can't let it get in your head. You have to stay focused on your job. My job is to keep you alive, Emily said simply. Their feelings about me don't change that. Marcus studied her again, looking for cracks in that calm facade. You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of my skills, sir. That's different. Emily looked out at the desert and something shifted in her expression. My grandfather used to say that a sniper's greatest weapon isn't the rifle. It's patience, the ability to wait to watch to see what everyone else misses. He said most people go through life half blind because they're too busy, too distracted, too convinced they already know what they're looking at. But a good sniper sees everything, every detail, every pattern, every inconsistency. And you think you're a good sniper. I think I see things other people don't, sir. I always have. It's why I chose this specialty. Not because I'm good at shooting, though I am, but because for the first time in my life, the thing that made me weird, the thing that made me different, suddenly made me valuable. She paused. I won't let you down, Sergeant Hale. I know you don't have any reason to believe that yet, but I won't. Marcus wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust that calm certainty, that quiet confidence. But he'd been in this business too long to trust potential over proven capability. Still, they didn't have another option. Get your gear ready, he said finally. And Carter, when we're out there, I need you to speak up. If you see something, if something feels wrong, I don't care if Devlin or Walsh or anyone else thinks you're being paranoid. You call it out. Understood. Yes, sir. 3 hours later, Marcus stood in the armory checking his kit for the final time. Rifle sidearm, extra magazines, grenades, medical supplies, radio. Everything in its place, everything ready. The ritual was familiar, comforting in its predictability. This was the part he understood, the preparation, the moment before the chaos. Walsh appeared beside him, already geared up. We're loaded, birds are spinning up. You ready for this? Ready as we'll get. Marcus closed his equipment bag. You have concerns about Carter. Walsh considered the question. Honest answer, yeah, but not the same concerns as Devlin. That kid can shoot, I saw that on the range. What I'm worried about is whether she can make the call when it matters. Combat's not about perfect shots. It's about making imperfect decisions under pressure and living with the consequences. You think she can't do that? I think she's never had to, and we're about to find out if she can handle it when the bullets start flying. Walsh hefted his breaching charges. But we're committed now. She's our Overwatch, whether we like it or not, so we better hope she's as good as she thinks she is. The flight out was quiet. The team sat in the Blackhawk's belly, each man alone with his thoughts. Emily sat at the far end, that rifle case between her knees, staring at nothing. Marcus watched her through the green glow of the cabin lights. She didn't look scared, didn't look excited, just focused, like she was already running through the mission in her head. Devlin leaned over, shouting to be heard over the rotors. You really trust her to cover us? I trust everyone on this team to do their job, Marcus shouted back. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I've got. The bird dropped altitude, and Marcus felt his stomach lurch. They were 5 minutes from insertion. 5 minutes from walking into hostile territory with a rookie providing Overwatch and a contractor who might already be dead. The math still didn't add up, but the mission was happening anyway because that's how it worked in the real world. You played the hand you were dealt. 2 minutes, the crew chief called. The team stood checking each other's gear with practiced efficiency. Emily struggled with her pack for a moment, and Marcus saw Walsh reach over to help her adjust the straps. A small gesture, but it meant something. Walsh might have doubts, but he wasn't going to let her go into the field with poorly fitted gear. 1 minute. The ramp dropped and desert air rushed in, hot and dry and tasting of sand. Marcus could see the landing zone below, a flat stretch of nothing surrounded by more nothing. This was the part he hated most. The transition from the relative safety of the bird to the absolute vulnerability of being on the ground in enemy territory. 30 seconds, green light. Go, go, go. They hit the ground running. The Black Hawk was already pulling away rotors, screaming, leaving them in sudden terrible silence. Marcus took a knee, scanning the darkness through his night vision. Nothing moved. The desert was empty and vast and utterly hostile. Carter Walsh, you are moving to the overwatch position. Radio check every 30 minutes. If you see anything, and I mean anything, you call it in immediately. Roger that, Walsh said. Emily just nodded. Marcus watched them disappear into the darkness, moving fast and low. Two figures swallowed by the night, and then they were gone, and Marcus was alone with the rest of his team and the long walk to Objective Rattlesnake. All right, he said quietly. Let's move. Standard patrol formation. Eyes open, weapons hot. We're in Indian country now. They moved through the desert like ghosts, using every scrap of cover, every shadow. Marcus led from the front, setting the pace, constantly scanning for threats. Behind him, Devlin and the others followed with the silent precision of men who'd done this 1,000 times. 30 minutes into the patrol, Marcus's radio crackled. Overwatch in position, Emily's voice barely above a whisper. I have eyes on the compound. No movement visible. Copy that, Marcus replied. Maintain overwatch. Call out any changes. Another 30 minutes. They were 2 kilometers from the compound, now moving through a narrow wadi that offered some concealment but also limited their visibility. Marcus didn't like it. Too many blind corners. Too many places for an ambush. His radio crackled again. Emily's voice still quiet but with an edge of urgency. Actual, this is Overwatch. I'm seeing something strange. Marcus held up a fist and the team froze. Define strange. The wind patterns aren't right. I've been watching the sand movement for the last 20 minutes, and there's an inconsistency about 400 meters northwest of the compound. The sand's moving differently there, like there's an obstacle blocking the natural flow. Devlin's voice cut in, dripping with sarcasm. She's calling a halt because the sand's moving funny. Marcus, tell me you're not seriously considering this. Marcus ignored him. Overwatch, can you be more specific? There's something buried in that position. Could be natural rock formation, but the pattern's too regular. If I had to guess, I'd say it's a vehicle or a fighting position that's been deliberately concealed. Marcus pulled up the satellite imagery on his tablet, zooming in on the coordinates Emily had indicated. He saw nothing, just empty desert. I'm not seeing anything on satellite, he said. The imagery is 48 hours old, sir, and if they buried it properly, you wouldn't see it from above. But the wind doesn't lie. There's something there. Devlin keyed his radio. With all due respect, we're not calling off an approach because a rookie thinks the wind looks weird. We have a contractor who needs extraction in a narrow window to get him out. Every minute we waste is a minute the militia gets closer. Marcus stood at a crossroads. Trust the experienced operators who thought Emily was being paranoid, or trust the rookie who claimed she could read stories in the sand that satellite imagery missed. The decision could mean the difference between mission success and walking into a trap. Overwatch, Marcus said slowly. How confident are you in this assessment? There was a pause. When Emily spoke again, her voice was absolutely certain. 100%, sir. There's something there. Marcus made his decision. Team, we're altering the approach route. Wide circle around the indicated position. Overwatch, keep your eyes on that location. If anything moves, if anything changes, you call it immediately. Roger that. Devlin's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Marcus, this is a mistake. We're adding 30 minutes to our approach time because a kid thinks she sees something that isn't there. Noted. Now shut up and move. They circled wide, adding precious time to the approach. Marcus could feel the team's frustration, could sense their conviction that he was making a terrible mistake. But something in Emily's voice, that absolute certainty, made him trust his instinct. They were halfway through the circle when Emily's voice came back on the radio, urgent now. Actual, I have movement at the indicated position. 2 No-3 individuals emerging from concealment. They're carrying weapons. Looks like an RPG team. Marcus felt ice in his veins. If they'd continued on their original route, they would have walked directly past that position. Would have been caught in the open with an RPG team at perfect range. Good catch, Overwatch, he said quietly. Can you engage? Negative, sir. They're in defilade from my position. I don't have a shot. Copy that. Team, we have confirmed hostiles at the indicated position. RPG team, 3 individuals. They don't know we've spotted them yet. We're going to use that zone. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus maneuvered his team into a flanking position. It was delicate work moving through open desert without being seen, but they'd trained for this. When they were finally in position, the RPG team was 100 meters away, still watching the kill zone they'd prepared, completely unaware that the SEALs had circled around them. On my mark, Marcus whispered into the radio. 3, 2, 1, mark. 3 rifles fired simultaneously. The RPG team went down without a sound. Marcus and his team moved fast, securing the position. What they found made his blood run cold. It wasn't just an RPG team, it was a full ambush position. Buried fighting positions, pre-sighted firing lanes, ammunition caches. If they'd walked into this trap, they would have been slaughtered. Overwatch, Marcus said into the radio. You just saved our lives. How the hell did you see this? The wind, sir. Like I said, it doesn't lie. Devlin stood over one of the dead fighters, his face pale in the moonlight. He keyed his radio. Carter, this is Devlin. I owe you an apology. That was exceptional work. Thank you, sir. Marcus looked at the compound, now just 800 meters away. All right, we know they're expecting us. The question is, how many more surprises do they have waiting? Sir, Emily's voice came back. I'm seeing more wind anomalies, at least 3 more positions around the compound. This whole area is a trap. Marcus felt the mission calculus shifting. They weren't walking into a simple extraction. They were walking into a killing field that someone had spent considerable time preparing. Someone who knew they were coming. All teams halt, advance. Overwatch, I need you to map every anomaly you're seeing. We're not moving another meter until we know what we're walking into. For the next hour, Emily called out positions. Each one, when checked, revealed another prepared ambush point. Buried weapons, fighting positions, kill zones carefully designed to funnel any rescue attempt into predetermined fields of fire. It was sophisticated work, the kind of tactical preparation that spoke to professional military training. Finally, Marcus had a complete picture. The compound was surrounded by a network of mutually supporting ambush positions, all carefully concealed or perfectly positioned. Walking into that without Emily's warning would have been suicide. Overwatch, this is actual, outstanding work. You've identified 8 separate ambush positions. The question now is, how do we get past them? There was a long pause, then Emily said, Sir, I think I can help with that. If you can get me coordinates for each position, I can start clearing them from here. Devlin's voice cut in immediately. That's 1,200 to 1,500 meters for most of these positions. In combat conditions. At night, Carter, that's impossible. No, sir, Emily said calmly. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. Marcus looked at his team. They were running out of time. The contractor had been alone for almost 24 hours now. Every minute they delayed was another minute he might not have. Overwatch, if you think you can make those shots, you have my authorization to engage. But Carter, be absolutely sure. If you start shooting and miss, you'll alert every hostile in the area to our presence. I understand, sir. Send me the first set of coordinates. Marcus gave her the coordinates for the nearest ambush position, a buried fighting position about 1,300 meters from Emily's location. Then he waited, barely breathing, listening to the desert silence. The shot, when it came, was so quiet Marcus almost missed it. A distant crack, barely louder than a stone falling. Then Emily's voice, completely calm. Target down. Next coordinates, sir. Over the next 40 minutes, Emily systematically dismantled the ambush network. 11 shots, 11 targets eliminated at ranges that it should have been impossible. Each time, that quiet crack in the distance followed by Emily's calm confirmation. Devlin watched through his scope, confirming each kill. His expression had gone from skeptical to awed to something like fear. Marcus, he said quietly, she's not missing. Not once. I've never seen shooting like this. Neither have I, Marcus admitted. The final shot was the longest. A sniper position on the far ridge watching over the entire compound. Emily called out the range 3,200 meters, more than 2 miles. At night, in desert conditions with crosswinds and heat shimmer. Overwatch, are you sure about this one? Marcus asked. Yes, sir, but I need 60 seconds to read the wind. Don't move. Marcus counted the seconds. 60 felt like 60 hours. He could hear his heart beating, could feel sweat running down his back despite the desert cold. Then Emily's rifle cracked one final time. There was a long pause, then target down. The approach is clear, sir. You have a straight shot to the compound. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Copy that, Overwatch. Maintain position and cover our extraction. We're going in. They moved fast now, crossing the open ground to the compound. The contractor was exactly where the last intel said he'd be holed up in a back room, terrified but alive. The extraction took less than 5 minutes. By the time the sun started to rise, they were already back at the extraction point, waiting for the Black Hawk to pull them out. Emily came in last, moving down from her ridge position. She looked exhausted, her face streaked with sand and sweat. The rifle case was back over her shoulder. She didn't say anything, didn't make eye contact, just took her position at the edge of the perimeter and waited. Marcus walked over to her. Hell of a night's work, Carter. Thank you, sir. 11 confirmed kills at extreme range, including one at 3,200 meters. That might be a record. Emily shrugged. Just math and patience, sir. Like my grandfather taught me. The Black Hawk came in low and fast. As they loaded up, Devlin approached Emily. Marcus watched, curious to see how this would play out. Carter, Devlin said, and his voice was different now, respectful. I was wrong about you. I'm sorry. That was the finest long-range shooting I've ever witnessed. Emily looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Where did you learn to read wind like that? I've been doing this for 15 years and I've never seen anyone call wind patterns the way you did. My grandfather, Emily said simply. He taught me that most people think sniping is about the shot, but it's really about reading the environment, understanding that everything talks to you if you know how to listen. The wind, the sand, the light, it all tells stories if you pay attention. Marcus listened to this exchange and realized something. The team had been wrong about Emily, not because she was capable, though she clearly was, but because they judged her based on what they could see on the surface. Age, experience, appearance. They hadn't looked deeper, hadn't seen what was actually there. Maybe that was Emily's real talent. Not just shooting, but seeing what everyone else missed. The flight back to base was different from the flight out. The team was loose now, talking easily, the tension gone. Emily sat in her usual spot, but now men were coming over to ask her about her rifle, about her training, about those impossible shots. She answered their questions patiently, without arrogance, just sharing knowledge. Marcus watched Devlin in particular. The marksman sat next to Emily, listening intently as she explained her wind-reading technique. There was no more skepticism in his face, just the eager attention of a student learning from a master. When they landed, the team dispersed to debrief in clean gear. Marcus caught Emily before she could disappear. You did good work out there, Carter. Really exceptional. Thank you, sir. I have a question, though. When you called out that first wind anomaly, when you stopped our advance, you knew the whole team thought you were wrong. You knew we were doubting you. How did you stay so certain? Emily considered their question. My grandfather used to tell me a story. When he was in Vietnam, his team was on patrol and he saw something in the tree line. Just a shadow, just a hint of movement. He called a halt. His team leader told him he was seeing things, told him to stop being paranoid. But my grandfather trusted what he saw, and he refused to move forward until they'd cleared that tree line. Turned out there was a full NVA squad waiting in ambush. His certainty, his willingness to trust his eyes over everyone else's doubts saved his entire team. She paused. He taught me that doubt is a luxury a sniper can't afford. When you see something, you have to trust that you see it regardless of what anyone else thinks. Because hesitation, second-guessing yourself, that's what gets people killed. Marcus nodded slowly. Your grandfather sounds like he was a hell of a Marine. He was. I miss him every day. Emily picked up her rifle case. Is there anything else, sir? Just one thing. You are permanently assigned to this team now. I'm putting in the paperwork today. We'd be honored to have you. For the first time since Marcus had met her, Emily smiled. It transformed her face, made her look actually 19 instead of ancient. I'd like that, sir. Thank you. She walked away, and Marcus stood watching her go, thinking about assumptions and trust, and the strange mathematics of combat that meant sometimes the least likely person turned out to be exactly who you needed. Devlin appeared beside him. She's something special, isn't she? Yeah, Marcus agreed. She really is. I've been doing this 22 years, and I've never seen anyone read terrain like that. It's like she can see patterns no one else can see. Think she'll stay with us, or will command pull her for some classified program? I don't know, but while we have her, we better learn everything we can, because that kid just rewrote the book on long-range precision work. They stood there in the desert dawn, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of fire. Somewhere out there, 11 hostile fighters were dead killed by a 19-year-old girl with a rifle she built herself. The math shouldn't have worked, but somehow impossibly it had, and Marcus suspected that Emily Carter was just getting started. The debriefing room felt smaller than it should have. Marcus sat at the head of the table watching his team filter in one by one, their faces showing the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came after missions like the one they'd just survived. Devlin dropped into his chair with a grunt. Walsh followed, then Rodriguez and Chen. Emily came in last, moving quietly to the far corner, like she was trying to make herself invisible again. Colonel Sarah Hendricks walked in carrying a tablet and a coffee that had probably gone cold an hour ago. She looked at each of them in turn, her expression unreadable. "All right," she said without preamble. "Someone want to tell me how a routine extraction turned into 11 confirmed enemy KIAI and a complete dismantling of what intelligence is now calling the most sophisticated ambush network they've seen in this theater?" Marcus leaned forward. "Ma'am, we walked into a trap, a well-planned, professionally executed trap that would have killed every man on my team if we hadn't identified it before engagement." Hendricks set down her tablet. "The after-action report says Petty Officer Carter identified the ambush positions through wind pattern analysis. Is that accurate?" "Yes, ma'am." "Wind pattern analysis." Hendricks looked at Emily. "Carter, stand up." Emily stood, her hands clasped behind her back, her face carefully neutral. "You're 19 years old," Hendricks said. "You've been out of advanced training for 6 months. You have 0 prior combat deployments. And last night you made 11 confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 1,200 meters, including one at 3,200 meters. How?" Emily's voice was quiet but steady. "Training, ma'am. An observation." "That's not an answer. I've read your file. There's nothing in there that explains this level of performance. So I'm going to ask you again, and this time I want details. How did you identify those positions?" Emily glanced at Marcus. He gave her a small nod. She took a breath. "The wind in desert environments follows predictable patterns based on temperature differential, terrain features, and time of day. When those patterns are disrupted, it indicates an obstacle. Could be natural rock formation, could be vegetation, could be man-made structures. I observed disruptions in the sand movement around the compound that were inconsistent with natural terrain. The patterns suggested buried vehicles or fighting positions, so I reported it." Hendricks studied her. "And the decision to engage at extreme range. Once Sergeant Hale confirmed the positions were hostile, elimination from distance was the tactically sound choice. Minimized risk to the team, maintained operational security, allowed for controlled engagement of multiple targets." "You make it sound simple." "The mechanics are simple, ma'am. The execution requires practice." Devlin spoke up. "Ma'am, if I may, I've been a designated marksman for 15 years. I've trained at every advanced course the Navy offers. What Carter did last night wasn't just practice, it was art. She was reading environmental conditions I couldn't even see and making shots I wouldn't have attempted. That kill at 3,200 meters, that's beyond what most people think is possible." Hendricks turned to him. "You were skeptical of her before the mission." "Yes, ma'am, I was. I was wrong." "Why were you wrong?" Devlin looked at Emily and something passed between them. "Respect, maybe. Recognition. Because I judged her based on what I could see on the surface instead of what she could actually do. I assumed youth and inexperience meant incapability. I was wrong, and if Sergeant Hale had listened to me instead of trusting Carter's assessment, we'd all be dead right now." Hendricks let that hang in the air for a moment. Then she picked up her tablet again. "Intelligence has confirmed that the ambush network was set up by a former Russian Spetsnaz operator named Victor Graves. He's been operating in this region for 8 months, specifically targeting coalition forces. 17 confirmed kills before last night. He's been untouchable because he's careful, professional, and he doesn't make mistakes." Marcus felt ice forming in his gut. "You said before last night. Last night you killed 8 of his men and completely dismantled his operation. Intelligence believes he was personally commanding that ambush, which means he's now aware that we have a sniper capable of operating at extreme range with perfect accuracy And men like Graves, they don't let something like that go unanswered. The room went quiet. Emily's face had gone very still. "What are you saying, ma'am?" Marcus asked. "I'm saying that Graves is going to come looking for whoever disrupted his operation. And when he figures out it was a 19-year-old girl with a modified Remington 700, he's going to take that personally." Hendricks looked at Emily. "You just made yourself a target, Carter. A very high-value target." Walsh leaned forward. "So we protect her, keep her on base assigned security, make sure Graves can't get to her." "That's one option," Hendricks agreed. "The other option is we use her as bait." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus stood up. "Absolutely not. Ma'am, with respect, Carter's a valuable asset. Putting her in a position where Graves can target her is tactically unsound." "Is it because from where I'm sitting, we have an enemy operator who's been killing our people for 8 months, and we finally have something he wants badly enough to expose himself for? Graves is careful. He doesn't take unnecessary risks. But ego pride, the need to prove he's the best, that might make him careless." Emily spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. "What exactly are you proposing, ma'am?" Hendricks turned to her. "We leak information that you'll be providing overwatch for another operation. We make it look accidental, like a communications intercept that wasn't properly secured. Graves gets wind that the sniper who embarrassed him will be in a specific location at a specific time. He comes hunting, and when he does, we're ready for him." "You want to use her as a tethered goat," Devlin said, his voice hard. "Stake her out and wait for the lion to come." "I want to eliminate a threat that's been killing our people for months," Hendricks corrected. "And yes, that involves risk. But calculated risk with proper support is how we win wars." Marcus looked at Emily. She was staring at Hendricks with those old eyes, and he could see her mind working through the scenario, calculating odds, assessing risks. "I'll do it," Emily said quietly. "Carter, you don't have to," Marcus started, but she cut him off. "Yes, sir, I do. If Graves is targeting coalition forces and I can help stop him, that's my job. That's what I signed up for." "You signed up to provide overwatch, not to be bait for a professional killer." Emily looked at him, and Marcus saw something in her expression that reminded him of her grandfather's story. That same certainty, that same willingness to trust her judgment over everyone else's doubts. "Sergeant Hale, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not helpless. If Graves comes for me, he's going to find out that I'm not an easy target." Hendricks nodded slowly. "All right, then here's how this works. We're running an operation in 72 hours. Real mission, real objectives, but we're going to make it look like Carter's providing overwatch from a specific ridge position. We leak the details through channels we know are compromised. Graves takes the bait. He shows up to eliminate what he sees as a threat to his reputation. When he does, we have counter-sniper teams in position to take him down." "And if your counter-sniper teams miss," Walsh asked, "then Carter better be as good as she showed us last night." The meeting broke up 30 minutes later after Hendricks had outlined the basic operational framework. Marcus caught Emily before she could leave. "You sure about this?" "No, sir, I'm not sure, but I'm willing." "There's a difference between being willing and being ready. Graves isn't like those fighters you engaged last night. He's been doing this longer than you've been alive. He's killed 17 coalition soldiers, and those are just the ones we know about. He's smart, patient, and utterly ruthless." Emily nodded. "I understand that, sir." "Do you? Because this isn't about making a long-range shot. This is about going head-to-head with someone who's going to be actively hunting you. Someone who knows exactly what you're capable of because you just demonstrated it. He's not going to underestimate you the way my team did." "Good," Emily said simply. "That means he'll be cautious. Cautious people make predictable choices. Predictable choices create patterns. Patterns can be exploited." Marcus stared at her. "You sound like you've done this before." "I haven't, but my grandfather told me stories about Vietnam, about counter-sniper operations, about what it's like when two people are trying to kill each other from a mile away and only one of them gets to go home. He said the person who wins isn't necessarily the better shot. It's the person who thinks more clearly under pressure. And you think you can think clearly when someone's actively trying to kill you." Emily considered the question. "I guess we'll find out, sir." The next 72 hours felt like 72 years. The team prepared for the operation with meticulous care, running through scenarios, checking equipment, wargaming every possible outcome. Emily spent most of her time on the range, But Marcus noticed she wasn't practicing long-range shots anymore. She was practicing quick target acquisition, close-range work, the kind of shooting you needed when someone was actively hunting you. Devlin worked with her, sharing techniques he'd learned over 15 years of professional marksmanship. Marcus watched them on the range, saw the way Devlin had completely reversed his opinion of her. Now he was protective, almost fatherly, showing her tricks for reading light conditions, for calculating wind at speed, for making snap decisions under pressure. "She's a fast learner," Devlin said, walking over to where Marcus stood observing. "Scary fast. I show her something once and she's got it. It's like her brain just absorbs information and immediately integrates it." "You worried about her?" "Terrified. She's good, Marcus. Maybe the best natural talent I've ever seen. But Graves has been doing this for decades. Experience counts for something. She knows that." "Does she? Because she acts like this is just another mission? Like going up against a legendary killer is the same as providing overwatch on a routine extraction." Devlin paused. "Or maybe she's just better at hiding fear than the rest of us." Marcus had wondered the same thing. Emily's calm was unnerving. She didn't show stress, didn't show doubt, didn't show any of the normal human reactions to being used as bait for a professional killer. Either she was the most composed 19-year-old on the planet, or she was very good at pretending. The night before the operation, Marcus found Emily in the armory cleaning her rifle for what was probably the 20th time. The Remington 700 lay disassembled on the table, each component meticulously cleaned and oiled. "Can't sleep?" Marcus asked. "Didn't try, sir. Figured I'd rather spend the time making sure everything's perfect." Marcus pulled up a chair. "You know it's okay to be scared." "I'm not scared, sir. Everyone's scared before an operation like this. If they say they're not, they're either lying or they're too stupid to understand the danger." Emily looked up from the rifle. "I'm not scared of dying if that's what you mean. My grandfather taught me that death is just part of the equation. You accept it as a possibility, and then you stop thinking about it because dwelling on it doesn't change anything." That's easy to say when you're sitting in an armory. It's harder when someone's shooting at you. "Probably." Emily fitted the bolt back into the receiver, her movements practiced and precise. "But being scared won't help me shoot better, won't help me think more clearly, won't help me see what Graves is doing before he does it. So what's the point?" Marcus watched her work. "Your grandfather taught you well. He taught me that sniping is 90% mental. The physical part, the actual shooting, that's just mechanics. But the mental part, staying calm when everything's going wrong, trusting your training, when your instincts are screaming at you to run, that's what separates people who survive from people who don't." "You miss him." "Every day." Emily's hand stilled on the rifle. "He died 2 weeks before I shipped out for basic training. Didn't get to see me graduate. Didn't get to see me earn my trident. Didn't get to see any of this. But I think he knew. At the end, when the cancer was really bad, he made me promise I'd use what he taught me. Said skills like that are too important to waste. So this what I'm doing tomorrow, this is keeping that promise." Marcus nodded slowly. "He'd be proud of you." "Maybe, or maybe he'd tell me I'm being an idiot for agreeing to be bait for a Spetsnaz sniper." Emily smiled slightly. He had a very practical view of risk assessment. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Emily reassembling her rifle, Marcus watching and thinking about missions and risk and the strange calculus that led young people to volunteer for jobs that might get them killed. "Can I ask you something, sir?" Emily said finally. "Go ahead." "Why did you trust me on that first mission? When I called out the wind anomaly, you had every reason to think I was wrong. Your whole team thought I was wrong, but you trusted my assessment anyway." "Why?" Marcus thought about the question. "Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Part of it was the certainty in your voice. You weren't guessing, you weren't hedging. You were stating a fact. And part of it was instinct. I've been doing this long enough to know when someone knows what they're talking about, even if I don't understand and how they know it. That's not very scientific." "No, it's not. But combat rarely is. You make the best decision you can with incomplete information, and then you live with the consequences." Marcus paused. "I'm glad I trusted you. You saved a lot of lives that night." "Just doing my job, sir." "That's more than a job, Carter. What you did, that was exceptional. And tomorrow when Graves comes hunting, I need you to remember that. You're not just some rookie who got lucky. You're a legitimate threat, and Graves knows it. That gives you an advantage." Emily finished reassembling the rifle and held it up, checking the action. What advantage is that? He's going to respect you, maybe fear you a little, and fear makes people careful. Careful people are predictable. You said it yourself, predictable choices create patterns. When Graves comes for you tomorrow, he's going to be thinking about you the whole time, worrying about you. And while he's focused on you, he's not going to see the counter-sniper teams until it's too late. Unless the counter-sniper teams miss. They won't miss. But if they do, Marcus met her eyes. Then you do what you do best. You see what everyone else misses and you make the shot that matters. The operation launched at 0600 hours. The primary mission was legitimate, a reconnaissance patrol to map enemy movement patterns in a contested area. Emily's Overwatch position was on a ridge overlooking the patrol with a route, exactly as advertised in the intelligence leak. What wasn't advertised was the 3 counter-sniper teams positioned in concealed locations around Emily's position, each one with clear sight lines to potential sniper hides. Marcus watched Emily gear up with the same methodical precision she brought to everything. Rifle ammunition spotting, scope rangefinder water, emergency medical supplies. Everything checked, double-checked, arranged exactly where it needed to be. Radio check every 30 minutes, Marcus reminded her. Anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call it in immediately. We're not taking chances with this. Yes, sir. And Carter, if Graves gets past the counter-sniper teams, if he actually makes it close enough to engage you directly, you do not try to be a hero. You call for extraction, and you get out. Understood. Emily looked at him with those calm, ancient eyes. Understood, sir. But if it comes to that, if Graves gets that close, extraction won't be fast enough. I'll have to engage. Then make sure you shoot first. Emily inserted with Walsh's fire team moving through the pre-dawn darkness to her position on the ridge. Marcus watched them go, feeling that familiar tension that came with sending people into danger. The counter-sniper teams were already in position, invisible in their hides, waiting. The sun came up slow and red, painting the desert in shades of blood and fire. Marcus's team began their patrol, moving through the designated route, maintaining normal radio discipline. To anyone watching, it looked like a standard reconnaissance operation. Nothing special, nothing unusual, except for the sniper on the ridge. Emily's voice came over the radio, quiet and professional. Overwatch in position. I have clear sight lines on the patrol route. No movement visible. Copy that, Overwatch. Maintain position and report any changes. The first hour passed without incident. Then the second. Marcus started to wonder if maybe Graves hadn't taken the bait after all. Maybe he was smarter than they thought. Maybe he'd seen through the trap. Then Emily's voice cut through the radio, sharp with urgency. All teams, I have movement. 1,200 meters northeast of my position. Single individual, moving tactical, using terrain for concealment. Marcus felt his heart rate spike. Counter-sniper teams, do you have visual? Negative, came the response from CS1. We don't see anything. CS2 negative. CS3 negative. Marcus keyed his radio. Watch, you're sure about this contact? Positive. He's good staying in dead ground using shadows. But I can see him. He's moving toward a position that would give him line of sight on my location. Counter-sniper team's Overwatch has called a contact. Reorient to coordinates she provides. Carter talked them onto the target. For the next 10 minutes, Emily calmly directed the counter-sniper teams, describing exactly where the contact was moving, what route he was taking, where he would emerge. Marcus listened, impressed despite his tension. She was reading the terrain, predicting movement, staying 2 steps ahead of someone she couldn't possibly see clearly at that range. CS1, I have him, one of the counter-sniper teams finally reported, confirming single individual moving tactical. He's setting up in a hide approximately 900 meters from Overwatch's position. Permission to engage. Marcus was about to give the order when Emily's voice cut in. Wait, don't shoot yet. Carter, what are you seeing, Markham? Marcus asked. It's wrong. The position he's choosing, it's good, but it's not perfect. Graves is too professional to choose a merely good position when a perfect one is available. This feels like bait. Hendrix's voice came over the command frequency. Overwatch, we have positive ID on the individual. Facial recognition confirms it's Victor Graves. Counter-sniper teams are authorized to engage. Ma'am, with respect, something's not right, Emily insisted. Give me 2 minutes. Let me watch him. There was a pause. Then Hendrix said, You have 1 minute, Carter. Then we're taking the shot. Marcus watched the seconds tick by, barely breathing. The counter-sniper teams had Graves in their sights. One shot and this would all be over. But Emily had asked them to wait, and after what she'd done on the last mission, Marcus was inclined to trust her instincts. "Time's up, Carter," Hendricks said. "CS1, you are clear to engage." "Wait!" Emily's voice was urgent now. "He's not looking at me. He's looking north. There's something else out there. Another shooter." Marcus felt ice flood his veins. "Say again, Overwatch." "There's another shooter. Graves is the bait. Someone else is setting up to take the actual shot. Northeast approximately 1,500 meters from my position. I can see the sun glint off his scope." The radio exploded with chatter. The counter-sniper teams repositioning, trying to acquire the new target. Hendricks demanding confirmation. Walsh asking if they should abort. And through it all, Emily's calm voice. "I have the second shooter, requesting permission to engage." "Negative, Overwatch," Hendricks snapped. "Counter-sniper teams will handle this. You maintain position." "Ma'am, the counter-sniper teams don't have the angle. Trees are blocking their sight lines. I'm the only one with a clear shot." Marcus looked at the tablet showing everyone's positions. Emily was right. The second shooter had chosen his position with brutal efficiency. The counter-sniper teams couldn't see him. But Emily, higher on her ridge, had a direct line of sight. "Overwatch, what's your range to target?" Marcus asked. "Approximately 2,100 meters. Wind is variable, gusting 8 to 15 miles per hour. I can make the shot." Devlin's voice cut in. 2,100 meters with variable wind conditions. "Carter, that's insane." "I can make the shot," Emily repeated, and there was absolute certainty in her voice. Marcus made a decision. "Overwatch, you are authorized to engage secondary target. CS1, you take Graves the moment Carter fires. Don't give him time to relocate." "Roger that." Marcus could hear Emily breathing over the radio, slow and steady. She was settling in, reading the wind, making her calculations. The entire operation had just turned on its head, and now everything depended on a 19-year-old making an impossible shot. "Steady," Emily whispered, talking to herself. "Wind's dropping. Wait for it. Wait for it." The shot cracked across the desert, and Marcus counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. "Target down," Emily reported. "Secondary shooter is eliminated." Simultaneously, CS1 reported, "Graves is down. Confirmed kill on primary target." The radio fell silent. Marcus realized he'd been holding his breath and forced himself to breathe. It was over. Both shooters eliminated. The trap had worked, but only because Emily had seen what no one else could see. "All teams maintain position," Hendricks ordered. "I want confirmation on both bodies before we celebrate anything." Walsh's fire team moved forward to secure Graves's position while another team checked the secondary shooter. It took 20 minutes of careful movement through potentially hostile terrain, but finally the confirmations came back. Primary target confirmed KYA. It's Graves, single shot to the head from CS1. Secondary target confirmed KYA, shot to the upper chest. This is also Spetsnaz based on his equipment. We're running identification now. Marcus felt the tension drain out of him. "Overwatch, that was exceptional work. You just saved this entire operation." "Thank you, sir. Requesting permission to relocate to secondary position. If there were 2 shooters, there might be more." "Granted, move to secondary position and maintain Overwatch. We're going to secure this area before we extract." The next hour was spent carefully clearing the surrounding terrain, looking for any additional threats. They found none. Graves and his partner had been working alone, confident that their plan would succeed. They'd been wrong, and it had cost them their lives. When the extraction finally came, Marcus made sure he was on the bird with Emily. She sat in her usual spot rifle case between her knees, face exhausted but calm. "How did you know?" Marcus asked. "About the second shooter." Emily looked at him. Graves was too exposed. He's supposed to be this legendary operator, but he chose a position that left him vulnerable from multiple directions. That didn't make sense unless he wanted to be seen. And if he wanted to be seen, that meant he was a distraction. So I started looking for what he was distracting us from. And you found it. I found the sun glint off the other shooter's scope. Just for a second, but it was enough. Devlin was sitting across from them, and he leaned forward. "That shot you made, 2,100 meters with variable wind. I couldn't have made that shot. Most people couldn't have made that shot. How did you do it?" Emily shrugged. "I listened to the wind, watched the mirage patterns, calculated the drop and drift. Then I trusted the math and pulled the trigger. You make it sound simple. The mechanics are simple. The hard part is staying calm enough to execute properly. Emily paused. My grandfather used to say that most people miss because they think too much. They start doubting themselves, second-guessing their calculations, worrying about failure. But doubt introduces hesitation, and hesitation introduces error. So you run your numbers, you trust your training, and you make the shot. Either you hit or you don't, but either way, doubt doesn't help you. Marcus listened to this and realized something. Emily wasn't fearless. She was just disciplined enough to not let fear control her actions. That was a different thing entirely and maybe more impressive. The debriefing back at base was intense. Hendricks wanted every detail, wanted to understand exactly how Emily had identified the second shooter when trained counter-sniper teams hadn't seen him. Intelligence wanted to know everything about Graves' tactics, his equipment, his methodology. The brass wanted to understand how a 19-year-old had just eliminated one of the most wanted enemy operators in the theater. Emily answered their questions with the same patient precision she brought to everything. Yes, she'd seen the sun glint. No, she couldn't explain exactly why she'd been looking in that direction. Instinct, maybe. Or just systematic scanning of potential sniper positions. Yes, she was confident the shot had been within her capabilities. No, she hadn't been scared. Yes, she understood how unlikely that sounded. Finally, after 3 hours of questions, Hendricks dismissed everyone except Emily and Marcus. Carter, Hendricks said slowly, I've been in this business for 25 years. I've worked with the best snipers the military has to offer, and I have never in my entire career seen anyone do what you just did. You identified a threat that no one else could see, made a shot that shouldn't have been possible, and did it all while remaining calmer than most people are at a Sunday picnic. So I'm going to ask you one more time. How? Emily looked tired now, the exhaustion finally showing through. Ma'am, I honestly don't know how to explain it better than I already have. I see patterns. I always have. Things that other people miss, I see them. Wind patterns, light patterns, movement patterns. My brain just works that way. And my grandfather taught me how to use that, how to turn that weird quirk of perception into something useful. So when I'm looking through a scope, I'm not just seeing terrain, I'm seeing a story. I'm seeing how the wind moves, how the light shifts, how the shadows fall, and sometimes I see things hiding in that story. Hendricks studied her for a long moment. You understand that what you can do that's not normal. That's not training, that's talent. Raw, exceptional talent. The kind that comes along maybe once in a generation. I'm just doing my job, ma'am. Your job was to be bait. Instead, you turned the tables on one of the most dangerous operators we've faced and eliminated both him and his partner. That's significantly above and beyond your job description. Hendricks paused. I'm recommending you for a commendation. And I'm also recommending that you be assigned permanently to Sergeant Hale's team. They need someone like you. Thank you, ma'am. After Hendricks dismissed them, Marcus walked Emily back to her quarters. The sun was setting again, painting the desert in those same shades of fire and blood. They walked in silence for a while, both of them processing the day. You know this isn't going to get easier, Marcus said finally. Word's going to spread about what you can do. People are going to want to use you, test you, push you to see what your limits are. I know, sir. And some people are daring to resent you. They're going to say you're too young, too inexperienced, that you've just been lucky. They're going to try to tear you down because seeing someone your age do things they can't do, that threatens them. I know that too, sir. So how are you going to handle it? Emily stopped walking and looked at him. The same way I handle everything else. I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. I'm going to trust my training, and I'm going to let the results speak for themselves. People can think whatever they want about me. As long as I'm keeping my team alive and completing the mission, their opinions don't matter. Marcus smiled despite himself. You really are something special, Carter. I'm really just trying to keep a promise to my grandfather, sir. Everything else is just details. They reached her quarters, and Emily paused at the door. Sir, can I ask you something? Go ahead. When you found out I was going to be your Overwatch before you'd met me, what did you think? Marcus considered lying, then decided she deserved honesty. I thought command had lost their minds. I thought they'd sent me a kid who was going to get someone killed. I thought the mission was compromised before it even started. And now I think you're the best sniper I've ever worked with, and I think I'm damn lucky to have you on my team. He paused. But I also think you're carrying a lot of weight for someone who's only 19. That promise to your grandfather, that need to prove yourself, that's a heavy burden. Don't let it crush you." Emily nodded slowly. "I'll try, sir, but the weight, it's what keeps me sharp. Without it, I'm just someone who's good at shooting. With it, I'm someone who has a reason to be perfect every time. And in this job, perfect is the only acceptable standard." She went inside and Marcus stood there for a moment thinking about talent and pressure and the strange alchemy that turned young people into warriors. Emily Carter was exceptional, that was undeniable. But exceptional people had a tendency to burn bright and fast, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching the beginning of something that might end badly. He hoped he was wrong, but 22 years in the teams had taught him that hope was a poor substitute for preparation, and the best way to keep people alive was to expect the worst and be pleasantly surprised when it didn't happen. Tomorrow they'd start preparing for the next mission. Tomorrow, Emily would be back on the range practicing refining, pushing herself to be even better. Tomorrow the machine would start grinding again. But tonight, for just a few hours, they could rest. They'd survived. They'd won. And sometimes in this business, that was the best you could hope for. The rest didn't last. At 0400 hours, Marcus's phone screamed him awake with the particular tone that meant someone important needed him immediately. He grabbed it, already swinging his legs out of bed, his brain shifting from sleep to combat mode in the space of a heartbeat. "Hail, Marcus, it's Hendricks. Get your team to the operations center now. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that requires your sniper. Move." 15 minutes later, Marcus stood in the operations center with his team, all of them looking like they'd been dragged through hell backwards. Emily was there too, her hair still wet from a quick shower, her eyes alert despite the early hour. Hendricks stood at the front of the room next to a man Marcus didn't recognize, a civilian in an expensive suit that looked completely out of place on a forward operating base. "This is Daniel Carmichael," Hendricks said without preamble. "He's CIA, and he has a problem that just became our problem." Carmichael stepped forward, his face grim. 12 hours ago, one of our assets in the region sent a panic signal. Dr. Sarah Chen, a civilian scientist working on classified research. She was operating under deep cover in a town called Al-Rashid, approximately 60 kilometers from here. Her last communication indicated she'd been compromised and was being hunted by local militia forces. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "And you're just telling us this now?" "We had an extraction team en route. They were ambushed 15 kilometers outside the town. 4 dead, 2 wounded, the survivors had to abort. Dr. Chen is now trapped in Al-Rashid with no support, and approximately 200 hostile fighters actively searching for her." 200, Walsh repeated. "You want us to extract 1 civilian from a town occupied by 200 enemy fighters?" "I want you to try," Carmichael said flatly. "Dr. Chen's research is classified above your pay grade, but I can tell you that if it falls into enemy hands, it would be catastrophic for national security. We need her extracted alive, and we need it done in the next 24 hours before the militia moves her to a location we can't reach." Devlin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This is a suicide mission. You're asking us to walk into a hornet's nest and grab 1 person out of 200 without getting killed. That's not tactical, that's fantasy." "That's the mission," Hendricks said quietly. "And before you ask, yes, it's voluntary. Anyone who wants to sit this one out, no judgment. But we need an answer in the next 10 minutes because the clock is ticking." Marcus looked at his team. He saw exhaustion, saw frustration, saw the calculations running behind their eyes. They just finished a high-risk operation. They were running on fumes, and now they were being asked to do something that, by all rights, should get them killed. "What assets do we have?" Marcus asked. Carmichael pulled up satellite imagery. "Dr. Chen is hiding in an abandoned textile factory on the eastern edge of town. She has no weapons, limited supplies, and approximately 6 hours before the militia completes their search pattern and finds her. The town is surrounded by open terrain on 3 sides, which makes conventional extraction nearly impossible. The militia has checkpoints on all roads, patrols throughout the town, and they're actively hunting for her. So we can't drive in, we can't fly in, and we can't walk in without being seen," Walsh said. "This just gets better and better." Emily spoke up, her voice quiet. "What about Overwatch?" Everyone turned to look at her. Carmichael frowned. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Petty Officer Emily Carter. Sir, sniper." "We don't need a sniper for an extraction." Yes, sir, you do. Emily moved to the map her finger tracing routes. If the town is surrounded by open terrain, that means there are elevated positions around the perimeter with clear sight lines. Put me on one of those positions and I can provide cover while the team moves in. Every time a patrol gets close, I eliminate them. Create enough confusion and the militia won't know where the threat is coming from. They'll scatter, reorganize, waste time. That gives the team a window to reach Dr. Chen and extract. Carmichael looked at Hendricks. Is she serious? Completely, Hendricks said. Carter just eliminated Victor Graves and his partner at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. If anyone can provide effective overwatch in this situation, it's her. She looks like she's about 12 years old. She's 19 and she's the best sniper I've seen in 25 years. Your call, Carmichael. You want our help or not? Carmichael studied Emily for a long moment, his expression skeptical. Then he sighed. Fine, but if this goes sideways, I'm not explaining to Washington how we lost a SEAL team trying to extract one scientist. Then let's make sure it doesn't go sideways, Marcus said. He looked at his team. I need a decision from each of you. This is voluntary. No shame in sitting this one out. Walsh spoke first. I'm in. Can't let you have all the fun. Rodriguez nodded. In. Chen, the team's medic, cracked his knuckles. Someone's got to keep you idiots alive. I'm in. Devlin looked at Emily, then at Marcus. If the kid's going out there, someone needs to watch her back. I'm in. Marcus felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. All right, then let's plan this thing properly. Carmichael, I need updated satellite imagery, thermal scans, if you have them, and everything you know about the militia's patrol patterns. Hendricks, I need transport air support on standby and emergency extraction protocols. We're going in fast and we're coming out faster, and I want every possible advantage we can get. The next 6 hours were a blur of planning and preparation. Marcus had run dozens of extractions, but never one this risky. The town of Al-Rashid was a tactical nightmare, a dense urban environment surrounded by open desert, perfect for defenders and terrible for attackers. The only advantage they had was Emily, and Marcus was about to bet his entire team's lives on her ability to create chaos from 2 kilometers away. Emily spent the time studying the terrain, identifying firing positions, calculating ranges and angles. Marcus watched her work, saw the intense focus on her face. She wasn't just looking at a map. She was building a 3-dimensional model in her mind, seeing lines of fire and dead zones and opportunities that no one else could see. You can do this, Marcus asked quietly. Yes, sir, but I'll need Devlin as my spotter. The ranges are going to be extreme, and I'll need someone calling wind and confirming targets. Devlin looked up from his own preparations. You want me on a ridge watching your back while the team goes into the kill zone? I want you helping me keep them alive, sir. That's your call. Devlin looked at Marcus, who nodded. All right, kid, but you better not get me killed. I'll do my best, sir. They inserted at 1800 hours using the fading light as cover. The Black Hawk dropped them 8 kilometers from Al-Rashid, far enough that the noise wouldn't alert the militia. Marcus led his team on foot, moving fast through the desert, using every scrap of terrain for concealment. Emily and Devlin split off 2 kilometers out, heading for the ridge that would give them overwatch of the entire town. Marcus's radio crackled, Emily's voice barely a whisper. Overwatch in position. I have eyes on the town, counting multiple patrols, approximately 30 individuals visible. The factory is on the eastern edge, exactly where Carmichael said. I'm seeing movement around. It looks like they're getting close. How close? Marcus asked, still moving toward the town. Maybe 30 minutes before they search that building. We need to move fast. Marcus picked up the pace, his team flowing behind him like water. They hit the outskirts of Al-Rashid just as the last light faded from the sky. The town was bigger than it had looked on satellite, a warren of narrow streets and crumbling buildings, perfect ambush terrain. Overwatch were at the perimeter. Guide us in. Emily's voice was calm, professional. Copy that. You have a patrol moving toward your position, 3 individuals, 50 meters north. They're going to cross your path in approximately 2 minutes. Marcus held up a fist and his team froze. He could hear the patrol, now voices speaking in Arabic, the sound of boots on stone. They were close, too close to avoid. Overwatch, can you engage? Affirmative, on your mark. Marcus counted heartbeats, waiting for the patrol to reach the optimal position. Then he keyed his radio. Execute. 3 shots so close together, they almost sounded like one. The patrol went down without a sound. Marcus heard Emily working the bolt, chambering fresh rounds, her breathing steady and controlled. Clear. Move now. Next patrol is 90 seconds behind them. They moved fast and low, using the buildings for cover. Marcus could feel the pressure mounting. They were deep in enemy territory, now surrounded by hostiles, dependent entirely on Emily to see threats before the threats saw them. Another patrol appeared ahead. Emily called it out, engaged, eliminated them before Marcus's team even had to slow down. Then another, then two more. Each time those quiet shots in the darkness, each time 3 or 4 bodies dropping before anyone could raise an alarm. "How many is that?" Walsh whispered. 11 confirmed, Marcus replied. "Carter, you're doing exceptional work. Keep it up." "Roger that. Be advised the militia is starting to notice something's wrong. I'm seeing increased radio chatter, and they're reorganizing their patrols. You've got maybe 10 minutes before they lock this whole town down." Marcus felt sweat running down his back. They were still 300 meters from the factory and moving through a town that was about to become a fortress. "Overwatch, we need a route, fast and direct." "Stand by." There was a pause, then Emily's voice came back, urgent. "All right, you've got a window. There's an alley 30 meters to your east. Take it, follow it north for 100 meters, then cut west through the building with the blue door. That puts you on a direct line to the factory with minimal exposure." Marcus didn't question it. He led his team through the route Emily had called, trusting her eyes over his own instincts. The alley was narrow and dark, perfect cover. The building with the blue door was abandoned, silent. They moved through it like ghosts and emerged less than 50 meters from the factory and walked straight into an ambush. Gunfire erupted from the 3 directions simultaneously. Marcus's team scattered, returning fire, trying to find cover in terrain that didn't have any. Rodriguez went down with a scream, hit in the leg. Chen dragged him behind a pile of rubble, while Walsh and the others laid down, suppressing fire. "Overwatch, we're pinned down," Marcus shouted into his radio. "Southwest corner of the factory, taking fire from multiple directions." Emily's voice was tight but controlled. "I see you, engaging now. Stay down." The rifle cracked and one of the hostile positions went silent. Then another, then a third. But there were too many of them, and they were too close. Marcus saw muzzle flashes from a window 20 meters away, felt rounds snapping past his head. "We can't stay here," Walsh shouted. "We're getting cut to pieces." Marcus knew he was right. They'd walked into a trap, and now they were paying for it. He was trying to calculate their options, none of them good, when Emily's voice cut through the chaos. "Actual, I'm seeing reinforcements moving toward your position. Approximately 40 fighters 2 minutes out. If they reach you, you're done." Marcus felt ice in his veins. They were already barely holding on. 40 more fighters would end this mission permanently. "Overwatch, can you slow them down?" "I can try. Devlin, I need you on the radio coordinating targets. We're about to get very busy." For the next 90 seconds, Emily's rifle became a symphony of death. Marcus heard the shots, heard Devlin calling out targets and ranges, heard Emily's calm acknowledgement, and then the crack of the rifle. The reinforcements trying to reach them started dropping bodies, falling in the street, the advance slowing as confusion spread through their ranks. But it wasn't enough. Some were still getting through, and Marcus's team was running out of ammunition and options. "Chen, how's Rodriguez?" Marcus shouted. "Bleeding bad. I can stabilize him, but we need to move soon or he's going to bleed out." Marcus made a decision. "Overwatch, we're going to make a run for the factory. Once we're inside, we'll secure Dr. Chen and hold a position until we can get extraction. I need you to clear our path." "Roger that. On my mark, you move. 3, 2, 1 mark." Marcus and his team ran. Behind them, Emily's rifle sang, each shot dropping a hostile who tried to follow. They crashed through the factory door, Walsh clearing corners with brutal efficiency. The interior was a maze of old machinery and shadows. "Dr. Chen," Marcus shouted. "Dr. Chen, U.S. military. We're here to extract you." A voice called out from the back of the factory. Female, terrified. "I'm here, 2nd floor, northwest corner." Walsh led the way up a rickety staircase while Marcus and the others secured the ground floor. They found Dr. Chen huddled behind a pile of boxes, a woman in her 30s with short dark hair and eyes that showed the kind of fear that came from days of being hunted. "Are you hurt?" Walsh asked. "No, just scared." She looked at them with desperate hope. "Can you really get me out of here?" "That's the plan, ma'am, but it's going to get rough before it gets better." Marcus's radio crackled, Emily's voice more urgent now. Actual, the militia is regrouping. I count approximately 70 fighters converging on the factory. They know you're in there, and they're preparing to assault the building. Copy that, Overwatch. Can you thin them out? I'm trying, but there's too many, and they're using cover effectively. I can slow them down, but I can't stop them. Marcus looked around the factory. It was defensible barely, but 70 fighters against 5 SEALs, and 1 wounded would be a slaughter. They needed extraction, and they needed it now. Hendricks, this is actual. We have the package, but we're surrounded and taking heavy contact. Request immediate air support and extraction. Hendricks's voice came back tight with tension. Actual air support is 10 minutes out. Can you hold that long? Marcus looked at his team, saw Rodriguez bleeding and pale, saw the exhaustion on everyone's faces. 10 minutes against 70 fighters. The math was brutal. We'll hold, Marcus said, because what else could he say? But tell them to hurry. The assault started 3 minutes later. The militia hit the factory from 2 sides simultaneously, a coordinated attack that spoke to professional training. Marcus's team met them with controlled fire, making every shot count using the factory's layout to create choke points and kill zones. But there were so many of them, and they kept coming. Emily's rifle never stopped. Marcus could hear it through the chaos, that steady rhythm of shots, each one dropping a hostile who got too close or exposed themselves for too long. She was buying them time with every trigger pull, every perfectly placed round. But even she couldn't be everywhere at once. Rodriguez is down, Chen shouted. I've lost his pulse. I need help. Walsh moved to help Chen while Marcus and the others held the line. A hostile got through on the east side, and Marcus put 2 rounds in his chest. Another came through a window, and Walsh dropped him with a headshot. They were holding, but barely, and Marcus could feel the situation deteriorating with every passing second. Air support is 5 minutes out, Hendricks reported. 5 minutes. It might as well have been 5 hours. Marcus's magazine ran dry, and he reloaded with shaking hands, his body running on adrenaline and desperation. This was it. This was how it ended. Trapped in a factory in a town whose name he'd forget if he survived, fighting overwhelming numbers with no good options. Then Emily's voice cut through the radio, and there was something different in her tone. Not fear, not panic, but a kind of cold calculation. Actual, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might work. I'm listening. The militia is grouped up outside the factory's south entrance, approximately 40 fighters in a space of maybe 30 meters. If I can hit the right target with the right ammunition, I can create a secondary explosion that would take out most of them. Marcus felt his brain trying to catch up with what she was suggesting. What target? There's a vehicle parked 20 meters south of the factory. Looks like a technical with a fuel drum strapped to the back. If I can hit that drum with an incendiary round, it should create an explosion large enough to clear that entire area. Devlin's voice came over the radio, urgent. Carter, that's a 3,200-meter shot at a target the size of a basketball in urban terrain with crosswinds and buildings creating air turbulence. That's impossible. I made that exact shot 2 days ago on Graves' partner. That was different. You had time to prepare, time to read the conditions. This is snap shooting at extreme range and combat conditions. I know the risks, sir, but if I don't try, they're going to overrun the factory and everyone inside dies anyway. So I'd rather try the impossible than guarantee the inevitable. Marcus looked at his team, looked at the hostiles massing outside, looked at Rodriguez's pale face and Dr. Chen's terrified eyes. Emily was right. They were going to die if something didn't change. At least this way they had a chance. Do it, Marcus said. Everyone get down and cover your ears. Carter, you have authorization to engage. Roger that. Switching to incendiary rounds. Devlin, I need perfect wind calls. Marcus counted heartbeats, listening to Devlin and Emily work together over the radio. Wind speed, direction, mirage patterns, air density. They were calculating factors that Marcus couldn't even see, trusting math and physics in Emily's impossible talent to thread a needle from 2 miles away. Shots ready, Emily said quietly. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The rifle cracked. Marcus counted. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The explosion lit up the night like a miniature sun. Marcus felt the shock wave through the factory walls, heard the screaming, smelled burning fuel and flesh. When he looked outside, the south entrance was a crater surrounded by bodies and burning debris. The militia's assault had been vaporized in an instant. Target destroyed, Emily reported, her voice shaking slightly. Confirm multiple enemy KYA, the south approach is clear. Walsh stared at the carnage, his face pale. Holy God, did she just do what I think she just did? She made an impossible shot and saved our lives, Marcus said quietly. Again. The remaining militia fighters were retreating now, the explosion having shattered their will to fight. Marcus's team held their position, protecting Dr. Chen and trying to keep Rodriguez alive until air support arrived. When the helicopters finally came screaming in, guns blazing, Marcus had never been so happy to hear rotors in his life. They extracted under fire, loading Rodriguez first, then Dr. Chen, then the rest of the team. Marcus was the last one on the bird, and as they lifted off, he could see the factory below surrounded by bodies and burning vehicles, and the wreckage of what had been a coordinated assault. Emily and Devlin were waiting at the extraction point, having moved down from their position. Emily looked exhausted, her face streaked with dirt and sweat, her hands shaking slightly as she secured her rifle. Marcus grabbed her shoulder. That shot you made, the one that saved us, that was beyond anything I've ever seen. Emily just nodded, too tired to speak. Devlin put his hand on her other shoulder. You're not human, he said, but there was awe in his voice. No human being should be able to shoot like that. I was your spotter, and I still don't believe you made that shot. Had to, Emily said quietly. No other choice. The flight back to base was silent except for Chen working on Rodriguez. The medic's face was grim, but focused, his hands steady despite everything they'd just been through. Marcus watched him work and prayed silently that they hadn't lost anyone today. They'd been lucky, impossibly lucky, and he knew it. Rodriguez made it. Chen stabilized him on the flight, and the base hospital took over as soon as they landed. The prognosis was good recovery, expected no permanent damage. Marcus felt something tight in his chest finally release when he heard the news. Dr. Chen was whisked away by Carmichael and a team of people in suits, disappearing into whatever classified world she'd come from. She'd thanked Marcus before she left, tears in her eyes told him she owed her life to him and his team. Marcus had just nodded, too tired to explain that she really owed her life to a 19-year-old girl with a rifle. The debriefing lasted 4 hours. Carmichael wanted every detail, wanted to understand how they'd survived what should have been a suicide mission. When Marcus explained Emily's shot, the one that had created the explosion and cleared their escape route, Carmichael's face went through several expressions before settling on disbelief. That's not possible, he said flatly. No one can make that shot. I watched her make it, Devlin said. I was spotting for her. I called the wind. She made the adjustments, she fired, and 3 seconds later that fuel drum exploded. It happened. Whether you believe it or not doesn't change that. Carmichael looked at Emily. You're telling me you hit a basketball-sized target at 3,200 meters in combat conditions with one shot? Yes, sir. How? Emily shrugged tiredly. Math, sir, and patience, and maybe a little luck. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have, sir. I saw the target, I calculated the shot, I trusted my training. It worked. Carmichael stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the desert. You realize what you've done, don't you? What you're capable of. That kind of precision, at that kind of range, that changes the entire tactical calculus. You're not just a sniper, you're a strategic asset. I'm just trying to do my job, sir. Your job? Carmichael laughed without humor. Your job just saved one of the most important research scientists in the intelligence community and eliminated approximately 50 enemy combatants in a single engagement. That's not a job, that's a goddamn miracle. He turned back to face them. I'm putting in a request to have you transferred to a specialized unit. People who can do what you do, they don't belong on standard teams. They belong in situations where those unique capabilities can be fully utilized. Marcus felt anger flare hot in his chest. She belongs with this team. We work together, we trust each other, we keep each other alive. You pull her out and put her in some classified program, you're going to burn her out in 6 months. That's not your call to make, Sergeant. Then whose call is it? Because last I checked, Carter's the one putting her life on the line. Seems like she should have a say in where she does that. Carmichael looked at Emily. What do you want, Carter? Emily met his eyes steadily. I want to stay with this team, sir. They gave me a chance when no one else would. They trusted me when everyone said I wasn't ready. I'm not abandoning them now. Even if staying means passing up opportunities that could advance your career. My career isn't the point, sir. Keeping my team alive is the point. Everything else is just details. Carmichael studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, you can stay with Hale's team. For now, but this conversation isn't over. What you can do, people are going to notice. And when they do, staying in one place might not be an option anymore. He left, and the room fell into heavy silence. Marcus looked at his team, saw the exhaustion on their faces, saw Rodriguez's empty chair, saw the cost of what they'd just accomplished. All right, Marcus said quietly. We're done for tonight. Get some sleep. We'll debrief properly tomorrow when everyone's had time to process. The team filed out, moving like zombies. Emily stood to follow, but Marcus stopped her. That shot you made, the one on the fuel drum, you said it was math and patience and luck. But I was listening to you and Devlin on the radio. That wasn't luck. That was something else. Emily looked at him with those old, ancient eyes. What do you want me to say, sir? That I'm special, that I have some gift that makes me better than everyone else? I don't feel special. I feel tired and scared and like I'm one bad day away from getting someone killed. But you don't get people killed. You save them, repeatedly, against odds that shouldn't be survivable. So far, Emily said quietly, so far I've saved them. But there's going to come a day when I can't make the shot, when the math doesn't work out, when the wind shifts at the wrong moment, or my hand shakes, or I just miss. And on that day, someone's going to die because I wasn't good enough. That's what keeps me up at night, sir. Not the fear of dying myself, but the fear of failing when it matters most. Marcus understood that fear. He'd lived with it for 22 years, the weight of command, the responsibility for other people's lives. It never got easier. You just learned to carry it. Get some rest, Carter. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. Emily nodded and left. Marcus stood alone in the debriefing room, thinking about impossible shots and 19-year-old snipers in the strange mathematics of survival. They'd been lucky today. Rodriguez had survived, Dr. Chen was safe, the team was intact. But luck ran out eventually, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were borrowing against a debt they'd eventually have to pay. He went to check on Rodriguez in the medical bay. The kid was sedated, hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred, but alive. Chen sat beside him, still in his bloody combat gear, refusing to leave until he was sure Rodriguez would be okay. He's going to make it, Marcus said quietly. I know, but I'm staying anyway. Chen looked up at him. That shot Carter made, I heard it over the radio. Heard Devlin calling out the calculations. That shouldn't have been possible. Nothing about Carter should be possible. But here we are. You think Carmichael's going to try to take her? Eventually, people like her, they're too valuable to leave in standard rotations. The brass will want to use her test, her limits push her until she breaks or becomes something more than human. Marcus paused. I'm going to fight it as long as I can, but there are fights you can't win. Chen nodded slowly. Then we better make the most of the time we have with her, because when she's gone, we're going to miss that guardian angel watching our backs. Marcus left Chen with Rodriguez and walked out into the desert night. The stars were infinite, overhead cold and distant and utterly indifferent to human concerns. Somewhere out there, Emily was probably cleaning her rifle, preparing for the next mission, carrying the weight of promises and expectations that would crush most people. But she wasn't most people. She was something rare and precious and dangerous, and Marcus's job was to keep her alive long enough to become whatever she was meant to become. He just hoped he was up to the task, because losing Emily Carter would be like losing the best weapon they had against a world that wanted them all dead. And Marcus had lost enough people already to last a lifetime. 3 days later, Marcus found Emily on the range at 0500 hours, which had apparently become her routine. She was there every morning before dawn, practicing shots that most snipers wouldn't even attempt. He watched her for a moment, saw the methodical way she worked. Fire, observe, adjust, fire again. No wasted motion, no frustration when she missed. Just cold analytical assessment and correction. You ever sleep? Marcus called out. Emily looked up, lowering her rifle. Sometimes, sir, when I can. Can't or won't. She didn't answer immediately, just started breaking down her rifle for cleaning her hands, moving with practiced efficiency. I keep seeing Rodriguez on that factory floor. Keep seeing Chen working on him, all that blood. Keep thinking about how close we came to losing him. That wasn't your fault. I know, sir, but if I'd been faster, if I'd seen the ambush before we walked into it, maybe he wouldn't have been hit at all. Emily pulled a cleaning rod through the barrel, her face intent on the work. My grandfather used to say that a sniper's job isn't just to take the shot. It's to see the whole battlefield to understand patterns before they happen to be 2 steps ahead of everyone else. I wasn't 2 steps ahead in Al-Rashid. I was reactive instead of predictive. That's why Rodriguez got hurt. Marcus sat down beside him. You saved his life. You saved all our lives with that shot on the fuel drum. You can't blame yourself for not being perfect. Why not perfect is the standard, isn't it? One mistake and people die. Rodriguez almost died because I made mistakes. Rodriguez almost died because we walked into a tactical nightmare against overwhelming numbers. You want to blame someone? Blame Carmichael for sending us in without proper intelligence. Blame the militia for setting the trap. Hell, blame me for not calling off the operation when I saw how bad the odds were. But don't blame yourself for being human. Emily looked at him and Marcus saw something crack in that calm facade. I'm scared, sir. Not of dying, but of failing. Every mission, the stakes get higher, the shots get harder, and everyone expects me to be perfect because I've been perfect so far. But I'm not perfect. I'm just a kid with a rifle who's been lucky, and luck runs out. Marcus had been waiting for this. The pressure, the weight of expectations, the impossible standard Emily had set for herself. It had been building since that first mission, and now it was finally breaking through. You're right, Marcus said quietly. Luck does run out. But what you have, that's not luck. That's skill. Exceptional generational skill. And yes, the pressure is enormous. Yes, people are counting on you, but you know what? You've earned that trust. Not through luck, but through performance. Through making impossible shots when it mattered most. Until I don't. Then you don't, and we adapt. But Carter, you can't live in fear of the one shot you might miss. You'll paralyze yourself. You'll second-guess everything. And that's when you actually will fail. Emily went back to cleaning her rifle, her movement slower now. How do you handle it, sir? The responsibility for other people's lives. Badly, Marcus admitted. I've lost people, good people, and every single one of them haunts me. But I learned that you can't carry the weight of every possible failure or you'll never move forward. You do your best, you trust your training, and you accept that sometimes the universe doesn't care how hard you try. That's not very comforting, sir. It's not supposed to be comforting, it's supposed to be true. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun start to paint the eastern sky in shades of red and gold. Finally, Emily spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. My grandfather's last words to me were, don't waste it. He meant the gift, the ability to see what others don't see. He spent his whole life developing that skill, and he wanted to make sure I used it for something that mattered. So every time I look through a scope, every time I make a shot, I'm trying to honor that. Trying to prove that his teaching wasn't wasted. But sometimes the weight of that promise feels like it's crushing me. Marcus understood. He'd carried his own promises, his own ghosts. Your grandfather would be proud of you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're trying. Because you're using what he taught you to keep people alive. That's not wasting it. That's the opposite of wasting it. Then why does it feel like I'm drowning? Because you're 19 years old and you've been thrown into situations that would break people twice your age. Because everyone's treating you like a miracle instead of a person. Because the things you can do are so far beyond normal that people forget you're still learning, still growing, still human. Marcus paused. You need to give yourself permission to be imperfect, Carter. Because the standard you're holding yourself to, nobody can maintain that forever. Emily nodded slowly, but Marcus could see she wasn't convinced. The weight was still there, pressing down on her, and he didn't know how to lift it. Maybe nobody could. His radio crackled, Hendrick's voice urgent. Marcus, get to operations immediately. We have a situation developing. Marcus and Emily reached the operations center to find it in controlled chaos. Hendrick stood at the center, barking orders, her face grim. Carmichael was there too, along with several officers Marcus didn't recognize. When Hendrick saw them, she waved them over. We have a hostage situation. 20 minutes ago, a school bus carrying children of coalition personnel was ambushed on Route 7. The driver is dead, the escort vehicle was destroyed, and approximately 15 children between the ages of 6 and 12 are now being held by an unknown militia group. Marcus felt ice flood his veins. Where? They've moved the bus to an abandoned compound 8 kilometers northeast of here. We have drone footage. Hendricks pulled up a video feed showing an old concrete building surrounded by desert. The bus sat in a courtyard surrounded by armed men. We're counting 12 hostiles, all armed with automatic weapons. They're demanding the release of prisoners we don't have and threatening to execute one child every hour until their demands are met. How long until the first execution? Marcus asked. Hendricks checked her watch. 38 minutes. Carmichael stepped forward. We're assembling a hostage rescue team, but they're 2 hours out. We need someone on site now providing intelligence and ready to act if the situation deteriorates before the rescue team arrives. Marcus looked at the drone feed, his tactical mind already working through scenarios. That compound has clear sight lines all around it. Any approach is going to be spotted long before we get close. They'll start executing children the moment they see us coming. That's where Carter comes in, Hendricks said, looking at Emily. There's a ridge approximately 1,800 meters from the compound. Perfect overwatch position. If the situation goes critical before the rescue team arrives, Carter can provide precision fire to neutralize threats while a small team moves in to secure the children. Emily was staring at the feed, her face pale. Those are children. Yes, they are, Hendricks said quietly, which is why we need the best sniper we have in position. Carter, I know this is asking a lot, but those kids need someone who can make impossible shots, and you've proven you can do exactly that. If I miss, children die. If you don't try, children definitely die. Those are the options we're working with. Marcus watched Emily's face, saw the fear there, the weight of what was being asked. This wasn't enemy combatants. This wasn't even trained soldiers. This was children, innocent kids whose only crime was having parents who worked for the coalition. I'll do it, Emily said, her voice shaking. But sir, I need to be clear. Shooting with hostages involved especially children, that's the hardest scenario there is. The margin for error is 0. If a child moves at the wrong moment, if I miscalculate by even an inch, I could hit them instead of the hostile. The risk is enormous. I understand that, Hendricks said, but we're out of good options. All we have are degrees of bad, and this is the least bad option available. 20 minutes later, Marcus and Emily were in a helicopter racing toward the compound. Devlin was with them, serving as spotter again. The rest of the team would follow in a second bird, ready to move in if Emily cleared enough targets to make an assault feasible. Emily was quiet, staring out the window, her hands gripping her rifle case so tight her knuckles were white. Marcus wanted to say something reassuring, but he didn't have any comforting words. This was a nightmare scenario, and they all knew it. Carter, Devlin said quietly, you can do this. I've seen what you're capable of. If anyone can make these shots, it's you. And if I can't, then we find another way. But I'm betting you can. They inserted 1 kilometer from the ridge, moving fast through the desert. Marcus could hear his heart pounding, could taste copper fear. This was different from their previous operations. This wasn't about completing a mission or eliminating enemy threats. This was about saving children, and the stakes felt immeasurably higher. Emily sat up on the ridge with Devlin beside her. Marcus stayed back, watching through binoculars. The compound was exactly as the drone footage had shown. The bus sat in the courtyard, windows covered. 12 hostiles visible, moving with the nervous energy of people who knew they were cornered. Overwatch in position, Emily reported. I have eyes on the compound. 12 hostiles confirmed, unable to see inside the bus, windows are blocked. Copy that, Overwatch. Rescue team is 90 minutes out. Your orders are to observe and report unless the situation goes critical. If they start executing hostages, you are authorized to engage. Marcus checked his watch. 22 minutes until the first deadline. 22 minutes to hope that the militia would hold off, would wait for negotiations that weren't coming. 18 minutes later, one of the hostiles dragged a child from the bus. A girl maybe 8 years old, crying and struggling. The hostile forced her to her knees in the center of the courtyard. They're preparing to execute, Emily said, her voice tight. Female child, approximately 8 years old. One hostile standing behind her with a pistol. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Overwatch, you have authorization to engage. Take the shot. Sir, there are other hostiles within 2 meters of the child. If any of them react when I fire, if they grab her or fall on her, she could be injured. I understand the risks. Take the shot. Emily didn't respond immediately. Marcus could hear her breathing over the radio, could imagine her running calculations, assessing angles, calculating risks. Every second felt like an hour. Shot ready, Emily said finally. Firing. The rifle cracked. Through the binoculars, Marcus saw the hostile's head snap back. The man dropped instantly, the pistol falling from nerveless fingers. The child screamed and ran, and for a terrible moment Marcus thought another hostile would shoot her. But the militia was confused, scattered, trying to figure out where the shot had come from. Target down, Emily reported. Child is moving toward cover. Remaining hostiles are repositioning. How many can you see? 9. 3 went into the bus. Sir, if they start using the children as shields, I won't be able to engage without risking civilian casualties. Marcus keyed his radio to the command frequency. Hendricks, they've started executing hostages. Overwatch eliminated one threat, but we need the rescue team now. If the remaining hostiles use the children as human shields, we're done. Rescue team is 60 minutes out. Can Carter keep them pinned? Marcus looked at Emily, saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands were locked on the rifle. Carter, can you keep them from executing more children for an hour? I can try, sir, but they know someone's shooting now. They're going to be more careful. For the next 45 minutes, Emily fought a silent war. Every time a hostile moved toward the bus, every time someone looked like they were preparing to grab another child, Emily's rifle would crack and another body would drop. She was shooting at ranges between 14 and 1,800 meters, making precision shots while children's lives hung in the balance. Marcus watched in awe as she worked. This wasn't the calm, methodical shooting he'd seen on the range. This was combat sniping at its highest level. Rapid target acquisition and engagement, trusting instinct in training when there was no time for careful calculation. 7 hostiles down, Emily reported, her voice hoarse. 5 remaining, all inside the bus. Sir, I can't engage them without risking the children. They're using the kids as cover. Copy that. Rescue team is 15 minutes out. Hold position and be ready to provide covering fire when they assault. Those 15 minutes felt like 15 years. Marcus could see the remaining hostiles through the bus windows, could see them moving among the children, using them as shields. Emily had her rifle trained on the bus, waiting for any opening, any shot that wouldn't risk a child's life. The rescue team came in fast, 2 helicopters dropping operators who moved with professional precision. The remaining hostiles opened fire using the bus for cover. Children were screaming, the sound carrying across the desert like knives. Overwatch, I need you to cover the rescue team's approach, Marcus ordered. Any hostile who exposes themselves, you take them. Roger that. Emily's rifle became a metronome of death. Every time a hostile looked out a window to shoot, Emily put a round through them. The rescue team used the suppression to close the distance, breaching the bus with flashbangs and overwhelming force. 30 seconds of chaos, gunfire, and screaming, and then silence. Bus is secure, the rescue team leader reported. All hostiles neutralized. We have 15 children, all alive. 3 with minor injuries, none critical. Extraction in progress. Marcus felt something tight in his chest release. They'd done it. The children were safe. Emily had made impossible shots under impossible pressure and hadn't missed once. Overwatch, that was exceptional work. Secure your position and prepare for extraction. There was no response. Marcus frowned. Carter acknowledged. Still nothing. Marcus looked over at Emily's position and felt ice flood his veins. She was slumped over her rifle, her body shaking. Devlin was beside her, his hand on her shoulder, talking urgently. Marcus ran. By the time he reached them, Emily was crying great racking sobs that shook her whole body. The rifle lay forgotten beside her. She held it together until the children were safe, Devlin said quietly. Then she just broke. Marcus knelt beside Emily. Carter, you did it. The children are alive because of you. I almost missed, Emily choked out between sobs. That third shot, the hostile moved at the last second. The round passed 6 inches from a child's head. 6 inches. I almost killed a little girl. But you didn't. You made the shot exactly where it needed to be. This time, what about next time? What about when my hand shakes, or the wind shifts, or I just miss? What about when I'm the one who gets a child killed? Emily looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. I can't do this anymore, sir. I can't carry this weight. Every shot is life or death now, and I'm terrified that the next one is going to be the one where I fail. Marcus pulled her into a hug, feeling her shake against him. This was what he had been afraid of. The breaking point, the moment when the pressure became too much. Emily had been holding it together through sheer force of will, but even will had limits. You don't have to do this, Marcus said quietly. You can walk away. Nobody would blame you. You've done more than anyone could ask. I made a promise to my grandfather. Your grandfather would understand. He was a sniper. He knew what this job costs. And I guarantee he wouldn't want you destroying yourself to trying to honor a promise he made you keep. Emily pulled back, wiping her eyes. I don't know how to be anything else. This is who I am. Take away the rifle and I'm just a scared kid with no purpose. That's not true. You're brilliant, talented, capable. You could do anything you wanted. But this is what I'm good at. This is what matters. Those children are alive because I can make shots nobody else can make. How do I walk away from that? Marcus didn't have an answer. It was the eternal question for people like Emily, people with gifts that made them invaluable in terrible situations. How do you step away when you know people will die without you? The extraction helicopter arrived, and they loaded up Emily, sitting silently with her rifle case clutched to her chest. Devlin sat beside her, not saying anything, just present. Marcus watched them and wondered how long Emily could keep doing this before it destroyed her completely. Back at base, Hendricks was waiting with Carmichael and a woman Marcus didn't recognize. She was in her 50s with short gray hair and the kind of face that had seen everything. This is Dr. Patricia Morrison, Hendricks said. She's a psychologist who specializes in working with special operations personnel. I've asked her to speak with Carter. I don't need a therapist, Emily said quietly. With respect, you do, Hendricks replied. Carter, you just saved 15 children's lives. But Devlin tells me you had a breakdown immediately after. That's concerning. We need to make sure you're okay to continue operating. I'm fine. You're not fine, Dr. Morrison said gently. And that's okay. What you're experiencing is a completely normal response to extraordinary pressure. But we need to talk about it before you go back out there. Because next time you might not recover as quickly, and that could get you or someone else killed. Emily looked at Marcus, her eyes pleading. He wanted to protect her, wanted to tell them all to leave her alone. But Dr. Morrison was right. The breakdown on the ridge was a warning sign, and ignoring it would be dangerous. Talk to her, Marcus said softly. Just talk. See if it helps. Emily nodded reluctantly and followed Dr. Morrison to a private office. Marcus watched them go, feeling helpless. This was beyond his ability to fix. All he could do was hope that Morrison could help Emily find a way to carry the weight without being crushed by it. Carmichael pulled Marcus aside. We need to talk about Carter's future. Not now, Carmichael. Yes, now. She's falling apart, Hale. You saw it. She's 19 years old and she's being asked to make life or death decisions multiple times a week. That's not sustainable. We need to either pull her from active operations or find a way to reduce the pressure. So pull her. Give her a break. We can. Do you have any idea how many operations are being planned around her capabilities? How many missions depend on having a sniper who can shoot like she does? She's become essential to operations across this entire theater. We pull her and people die. Marcus felt anger rise hot in his chest. So we burn her out instead. We use her until she breaks completely. That's your solution. I don't have a good solution, Carmichael snapped. I have bad options and worse options. We can keep using her and risk destroying her mentally. Or we can bench her and accept that missions will fail and people will die who might have lived if she was there. Those are the choices. Pick one. Marcus wanted to hit him, wanted to rage against the cold calculus that treated Emily like a piece of equipment instead of a person. But Carmichael was right. They were trapped between impossible choices, and Emily was caught in the middle. What did Morrison say? Marcus asked after a long silence. She said Carter shows signs of severe stress anxiety in the early stages of burnout. But she also said that Carter has extraordinary resilience and a strong sense of purpose. Morrison thinks with proper support, Carter might be able to continue operating. But it's going to require careful management. What kind of support? Regular therapy sessions, mandatory rest between missions, reducing the operational tempo, and most importantly, giving her permission to fail. Right now, Carter thinks she has to be perfect every time, and that's not sustainable. We need to make it clear that mistakes are acceptable, that she's allowed to be human. Marcus thought about his conversation with Emily that morning, about her fear of failing, about the crushing weight of expectations. She won't accept that. Her grandfather's promise her own standards. They won't let her give herself permission to be imperfect. Then we have to give it to her. We have to make it a command decision. Carter, you are ordered to accept that you're human and humans make mistakes. You are ordered to take care of yourself. You are ordered to ask for help when you need it. You can't order someone to stop holding themselves to impossible standards. No, but you can create an environment where those standards become less crushing, where she has support, where she knows people have her back, even if she fails, where she's treated like a person instead of a miracle. Carmichael paused. That's on you, Hale. You're her team leader. She trusts you. If you tell her it's okay to be imperfect, she might actually believe it. Marcus nodded slowly. Carmichael was right. Emily needed support, needed permission to be human. And if Marcus couldn't provide that, he was failing her as badly as everyone else. Emily emerged from Morrison's office 2 hours later, looking exhausted but calmer. She found Marcus in the armory cleaning weapons. How'd it go? Marcus asked. Dr. Morrison thinks I need to take a break. Step back from operations for a few weeks, get my head straight. Emily sat down across from him. I told her I can't do that. Too many missions depend on me. And what did she say? She said that's martyr thinking, that I'm setting myself up to crash and burn, and when I do, I'll be useless to everyone. She's probably right. Marcus set down the weapon he was cleaning. Carter, I need you to listen to me. What you can do, what you've accomplished, it's extraordinary. But you're not invincible. You're not a machine. You're a 19-year-old woman who's been put in impossible situations and asked to be perfect every time. That's not fair to you. Fair doesn't matter. Results matter. Results matter, but so do you. You matter. Not as a sniper, not as an asset, but as a person. And watching you destroy yourself, trying to be perfect for everyone else, that's killing me. Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. Your grandfather would not want this for you. He'd want you to use your gifts, yes, but not at the cost of your soul. Emily was quiet for a long moment. What do I do, sir? How do I find balance between using what I can do and preserving who I am? I don't know, Marcus admitted. But maybe the first step is accepting that you don't have to figure it out alone. You have a team, you have support, you have people who care about you and want to help. Let us. I'm not good at accepting help. Neither am I, but we're going to learn together because the alternative is watching you burn out, and that's not acceptable. Emily nodded slowly. Okay, I'll try. But sir, I need you to understand something. Those children today, I'll carry that forever. The shots I made, the ones I almost missed, the fear in their eyes. That's with me now. And every mission from here on, I'm going to be carrying that weight plus whatever new weight we add. It's cumulative. It builds. And I know how much more I can carry before it crushes me. Then we make sure you don't have to carry it alone, Marcus said firmly. We share the weight. That's what teams do. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway leaning on crutches. Heard you saved a bus full of kids today, Carter. That true? Emily looked up, surprise on her face. You should be resting. I was resting. Got bored. Figured I'd come thank the sniper who saved my life in Al-Rashid. Rodriguez hobbled over and sat down with a grunt. Chen told me about the shot you made, the one on the fuel drum. Said it was impossible and you made it anyway. Just got lucky. Bullshit. That was skill. Same as today was skill. You are keeping us alive out there, Carter, and we don't forget that. So when you're feeling like the weight's too much, you remember that there's a whole team of guys who owe you their lives. We got your back, always. Walsh walked in, followed by Chen. Then Devlin. One by one, Marcus's entire team assembled in the armory, all of them looking at Emily with respect and gratitude and concern. We heard you had a rough day, Walsh said quietly. Figured you might need to know you're not alone. Emily looked around at them, tears starting to form in her eyes again. I almost missed. That third shot, I almost hit a child. But you didn't, Chen said firmly. You made the shot exactly where it needed to be. That's what matters. What matters is that you're human, Devlin added. You're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to break down. You're allowed to need help. We're not going to judge you for that. We're just grateful you're on our team. Emily stood up and Walsh pulled her into a hug. Then Chen, then Rodriguez, despite his crutches, then Devlin. They surrounded her, this team of hard men who'd seen too much death and carried too many scars, and they held her while she cried. Not because she was weak, but because she'd been strong for so long that she'd earned the right to break down without shame. Marcus watched, feeling something tight in his chest. This was what teams were supposed to be. Not just tactical units executing missions, but families taking care of each other when the weight became too much. Emily had proven herself in combat repeatedly. Now the team was proving themselves to her, showing her that she wasn't just valued for what she could do, but for who she was. When Emily finally pulled away, her eyes were red but clearer than Marcus had seen them in days. Thank you, all of you. I don't know what I did to deserve a team like this. You kept us alive, Marcus said simply. That's enough. The team dispersed, eventually returning to their own routines and rituals. Emily stayed in the armory with Marcus, methodically cleaning her rifle, the movements meditative and calming. Sir, she said after a long silence, I think I'm ready to talk to Dr. Morrison again. To really talk this time, not just deflect and minimize. I think I need help learning how to carry this weight without it destroying me. That's the smartest thing you have said all day, Marcus replied. And Carter, I'm proud of you. Not for the shots you made or the missions you completed, but for having the courage to admit you need help. That takes more strength than most people have. Emily smiled slightly. My grandfather used to say that asking for help isn't weakness, it's intelligence. Smart people recognize their limits and find ways to work within them. Stupid people pretend they're invincible right up until they break. Your grandfather was a wise man. He was. I just wish he was here to help me figure this out. He is, Marcus said gently, in the lessons he taught you and the skills he gave you and the promise he made you keep. He's with you every time you look through that scope. And I think if he could see you now, he'd tell you that you're doing exactly what he hoped you'd do. You're using your gifts to save lives. Everything else is just details. Emily finished cleaning her rifle and packed it away with care. I'm going to rest now, sir. Actually, rest, not just lie awake worrying. And tomorrow I'll talk to Dr. Morrison. And maybe if I'm lucky, I'll figure out how to do this job without losing myself in the process. That's all any of us can hope for, Marcus said. Get some sleep, Carter. Tomorrow's a new day. Emily left and Marcus sat alone in the armory, thinking about pressure and breaking points and the thin line between using someone's gifts and destroying them. They'd almost lost Emily today, not to enemy fire, but to the crushing weight of expectations and fear and responsibility. But they'd pulled her back, the team had rallied around her, and maybe that would be enough. Maybe tomorrow Emily would start finding her balance. Maybe with Morrison's help and the team's support, she'd learn to carry the weight without being crushed. Maybe the next mission would be easier, the pressure less intense, the stakes not quite so high. Or maybe tomorrow would bring new impossible situations, and Emily would have to make more impossible shots, and the cycle would continue until something finally broke for good. Marcus didn't know. He couldn't see the future. All he could do was what he'd always done. Take care of his team, trust their skills, and hope that when the next crisis came, they'd all be strong enough to survive it together. Because in the end, that was all anyone could do. Hope, prepare, and when the moment came, trust that training and talent and teamwork would be enough. It had to be enough, because the alternative was unthinkable. 2 weeks passed. Emily worked with Dr. Morrison 3 times a week, learning techniques for managing stress, for separating mission from self-worth, for carrying weight without being crushed. Marcus watched her slowly rebuild, saw the darkness lift from her eyes, saw her start to smile again, at things that had nothing to do with shooting. Then Hendricks called them all to operations at 0200 hours, and Marcus knew their brief respite was over. The operations center was packed with brass Marcus didn't recognize. Generals, colonels, people who didn't usually show up unless something massive was happening. Carmichael stood at the front looking grim. When everyone was assembled, he started without preamble. 72 hours ago, we intercepted communications indicating a major terrorist attack being planned against coalition forces. The target is Forward Operating Base Liberty, home to over 3,000 personnel. The attack is scheduled for 0600 hours this morning. 4 hours from now. The room went dead silent. Walsh spoke first. What kind of attack? Vehicle-borne IEDs. Multiple trucks loaded with explosives coordinated assault to breach the perimeter and detonate inside the base. Intelligence suggests this could be the largest terrorist attack against coalition forces in the past decade. Casualties would be catastrophic. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Can we evacuate? Negative. 3,000 people, we don't have the transport or the time, and moving them would create an even bigger target on the roads. Our only option is to stop the attack before it reaches the base. How many trucks? Devlin asked. 6 confirmed, each one carrying approximately 500 pounds of explosives. They're converging on the base from 3 different directions, timed to arrive simultaneously to overwhelm defenses. Hendricks stepped forward. We have drone coverage tracking the trucks. They're currently 40 kilometers out, moving through a narrow canyon system that funnels all three routes into a single choke point approximately 12 kilometers from the base. That's our opportunity. We stop them there, or we don't stop them at all. Marcus looked at the map, saw the terrain, saw the tactical nightmare they were facing. 6 trucks moving at highway speed through a canyon. How are we supposed to stop them? Carmichael looked directly at Emily. We need someone who can disable the trucks before they reach the base. Someone who can make precision shots at extreme range on moving targets. We need Carter. Emily's face had gone pale. Sir, shooting at moving vehicles is exponentially harder than stationary targets. The lead calculation alone is complex, and if I miss if the round doesn't disable the truck, they keep coming. We're aware of the difficulty, but you're the only sniper we have who might be able to make these shots. Everyone else doesn't have the range or the precision. What's the expected range? Emily asked quietly. Between 2,000 and 2,500 meters, depending on where you set up. The trucks will be moving at approximately 60 kilometers per hour through the canyon. You'll have maybe 3 seconds per target before they're out of your firing window. Devlin stood up. That's impossible. Even for Carter, that's asking too much. Moving targets at that range, that speed, with that kind of pressure, nobody can make those shots consistently. Then 3,000 people die, Carmichael said flatly, because we don't have another option. The trucks are hardened armored. Standard weapons won't stop them. We need precision hits on specific vulnerable points. Engine blocks, fuel systems, driver compartments. And we need all 6 trucks disabled before any of them reach the base. Marcus looked at Emily. She was staring at the map, her mind clearly running through scenarios, calculating odds. He could see the fear on her face, could see the weight settling back onto her shoulders. Carter, Marcus said quietly, you don't have to do this. Dr. Morrison said you needed to reduce operational tempo, needed time to recover. This is the opposite of that. 3,000 people, sir. Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. If I don't try, 3,000 people die. Children, families, people who just want to go home. I can't let that happen. You can't save everyone. That's not your responsibility. Emily looked at him with those old eyes. Then whose responsibility is it? I have a gift. A terrible specific gift that might be the only thing standing between those people and death. My grandfather taught me that gifts like that come with obligations. How do I walk away from that? Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to pull rank and order her to stand down to let someone else handle this impossible task. But he knew Emily was right. They didn't have another option. She was their only chance. All right, Marcus said finally. Then we do this right. Full team support, every resource we have. Devlin, you are spotting. Walsh Chen Rodriguez, if he's cleared, we're on standby for emergency response if anything goes wrong. Carter, you get the best position, the best equipment, and anything else you need. We're not asking you to do this alone. Rodriguez spoke up from the back. I'm cleared. Walked out of medical this morning. I'm good to go. Then suit up. We move in 30 minutes. Marcus looked at Carmichael. And if this goes sideways, if Carter can't make the shots, or if something goes wrong, I want air support standing by. We're not letting those trucks reach the base under any circumstances. Air support is already scrambled, but Carter's our primary plan. Everything else is backup. The flight to the canyon was tense and silent. Emily sat with her rifle across her lap, staring at nothing, her lips moving slightly. Marcus realized she was doing math-running calculations, preparing mentally for what was coming. You okay? He asked quietly. No, sir. I'm terrified. But I'll do it anyway because that's the job. They inserted on a ridge overlooking the canyon a natural choke point where all 3 routes converged. Emily set up with Devlin beside her, checking sight lines, calculating ranges, preparing for the most difficult shooting of her life. First truck is 30 minutes out, Hendricks reported over the radio. Carter, you'll engage in order of arrival. Disable each truck before it exits the canyon. Miss one and it has a straight shot to the base. Understood, ma'am. Emily's voice was steady, professional. She'd locked away the fear, pushed it down beneath training and discipline. Marcus recognized it because he did the same thing. You couldn't fight and be afraid at the same time, so you chose to fight and dealt with the fear later. 28 minutes later, Devlin called out, I have visual on the first truck. Range 2,400 meters, speed approximately 60 kilometers per hour. Emily settled behind her rifle. I see it. Calculating lead. Marcus watched through binoculars, barely breathing. The truck was moving fast through the canyon, a massive vehicle bristling with armor. Emily would have one chance, maybe two if she was lucky. Missing the truck would be past them, racing toward 3,000 people who had no idea death was coming. Wind is 4 miles per hour from the west, Devlin called. Mirage pattern shows heat shimmer moderate. Correction factor point, 7 mils. Adjusting. Emily's hands moved on the scope, making minute changes. Target is the engine block. Firing. The rifle cracked. Marcus counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 3, and the truck's hood exploded in a shower of metal and steam. The vehicle swerved, violently smashed into the canyon wall, and stopped dead. Emily worked the bolt, chambered another round. Target disabled. Standing by for truck. Truck 2. Truck 2 is inbound, Devlin called. Range 2,200 meters. They saw what happened to truck 1. They're taking evasive action. The second truck was swerving, using the full width of the canyon, making itself a harder target. Emily tracked it calmly, waiting for the right moment. They're moving too erratically, Devlin said urgently. Carter, I can't get a stable wind call. I see it. Waiting for a pattern. Emily's breathing was slow and controlled. The truck swerved left, then right, then left again. They're overcorrecting. Next swerve will be right. Firing. The rifle cracked. The truck swerved right, exactly as Emily predicted, driving directly into the path of her round. The windshield shattered and the truck veered off the road, flipping twice before coming to rest upside down. Target 2 disabled. 3 down, 4 remaining. Marcus felt hope starting to build. She was doing it, making impossible shots on moving targets at ranges that shouldn't be possible. But the next trucks would be even more careful, more evasive, harder to hit. Trucks 3 and 4 are approaching simultaneously, Devlin reported. Range 2,300 meters. They're staggered, using each other for cover. Emily's jaw tightened. Can't engage both at once. I'll take truck 3 first, then transition to 4. You'll have maybe 2 seconds between shots. Then I better not miss, Emily fired. Truck 3's engine exploded. She worked the bolt with practiced speed, acquiring truck 4, leading it, calculating in milliseconds. The rifle cracked again. Truck 4's driver slumped and the vehicle careened into the canyon wall. Targets 3 and 4 disabled. 2 remaining. Walsh's voice came over the radio, awed. She's actually doing it. She's stopping them all. But Marcus saw something that made his blood freeze. Carter, trucks 5 and 6 are splitting on up. They're taking different routes through the canyon. You can't cover both positions. Emily looked through her scope, saw what Marcus was seeing. The final 2 trucks had learned from the others' mistakes. They were separating, using terrain to block Emily's sightlines, making it impossible to engage both. I can see truck 5, Emily said tightly. Truck 6 is behind that rock formation. I can't get an angle on both. Then take 5 and we'll figure out how to stop 6, Marcus said, already moving. Walsh, Rodriguez, Chen, we're going mobile. If truck 6 gets past Carter, we intercept on foot. With what? Rodriguez demanded. We don't have anything that can stop an armored truck. Then we get creative. Move. Emily's rifle cracked. Truck 5 disabled. Truck 6 is accelerating. I've lost visual. It's your problem now. Marcus and his team were already running, racing down from the ridge toward the canyon floor. Truck 6 was 2 kilometers away and closing fast. They had maybe 2 minutes to figure out how to stop 500 pounds of explosives from reaching the base. There, Walsh pointed to a narrow section of the canyon where the walls closed in. If we can create a rockslide block the road the truck won't be able to get through. How do we create a rockslide? Chen asked. Rodriguez was already pulling explosives from his pack. We blow the canyon wall, small charges precisely placed. The rock's already fractured, it won't take much. They had 90 seconds. Rodriguez placed charges with shaking hands while Marcus and Walsh provided security. 60 seconds. Chen helped Rodriguez wire the detonator. 30 seconds. Marcus could hear the truck, now engine roaring, racing toward them. Blow it, Marcus shouted. Rodriguez triggered the charges. The canyon wall exploded, tons of rock cascading down, blocking the road completely. The truck came around the corner at full speed, saw the obstruction too late, and smashed into it at 60 kilometers per hour. The impact triggered the explosives. The blast wave knocked Marcus off his feet, slammed him into the canyon wall. His ears rang, his vision swam. He could smell burning, could feel heat on his face. When his vision cleared, the truck was nothing but twisted metal and fire. "Everyone alive," Marcus croaked. "Alive," Walsh called back. "Bleeding, but alive." Rodriguez laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "We just stopped a truck bomb with a rock slide that actually worked." Marcus's radio crackled. Emily's voice urgent. "Actual, I heard an explosion. What happened?" "Truck 6 is disabled. All 6 trucks stopped. The base is safe." There was a long pause, then Emily's voice came back shaking. "We did it. We actually did it." "You did it," Marcus corrected. 5 trucks disabled by the best shooting I've ever witnessed. The 6th, we got lucky. But this was your mission, Carter. You saved 3,000 lives today. The extraction came 20 minutes later. Marcus's team loaded up bruised and battered but alive. Emily sat quietly in the helicopter staring at her hands. Devlin sat beside her, his face showing the kind of awe that came from witnessing something truly exceptional. 5 moving targets, Devlin said quietly, at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters, in combat conditions, with the lives of 3,000 people depending on you not missing. Carter, I've been a sniper for 15 years and I couldn't have done what you just did. Nobody could have done what you just did. I almost didn't, Emily said. That second truck, I read the pattern wrong. Got lucky that they overcorrected. You didn't get lucky. You predicted their behavior based on their previous movements and made a shot that capitalized on that prediction. That's not luck, that's genius. Emily looked at him with tired eyes. It doesn't feel like genius. It feels like I'm drowning, and every time I come up for air, someone pushes me back under. Marcus moved over to sit beside her. Carter, after this mission, I'm pulling you from active operations for a month. Mandatory rest, mandatory therapy, mandatory time to recover. And I don't want to hear any arguments about obligations or promises or how many people might need you. You need time, and you're going to take it. Sir, I can't just stop. There are always more missions, more people who need help. And there always will be. That's the nature of this job. But if we burn you out completely, if we push you until you break, then we lose you forever. Better to rest now and be ready later than to keep going until there's nothing left. Emily was quiet for a long moment. What if I can't come back? What if I take time off and I lose the edge, lose the ability to make these shots? Then you lose it, Marcus said firmly, and we adapt. But Carter, you're more than your ability to shoot. You're a person with value beyond your tactical utility. And if you can't see that, if you can't understand that we care about you as a human being and not just as a weapon, then we've failed you as a team. Tears started running down Emily's face. I'm so tired, sir. I'm so tired of being afraid of carrying this weight of knowing that if I fail, people die. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. Then don't. Take the break. Heal. Figure out who Emily Carter is when she's not behind a rifle. Maybe you'll come back to this, maybe you won't. But either way, you'll have made the choice for yourself instead of letting obligation and fear make it for you. The helicopter landed, and Emily was immediately surrounded by people. Generals congratulating her, intelligence officers wanting to debrief her, Carmichael, looking at her like she was a national treasure that needed to be locked away and protected. Hendricks pushed through the crowd and grabbed Emily by the shoulders. You just prevented the largest terrorist attack in a decade. 3,000 people are alive right now because of you. Do you understand what you've done? Emily looked at her with exhausted eyes. I did my job, ma'am, same as always. This wasn't just a job. This was extraordinary. I'm recommending you for the highest commendation available. You've earned it. I don't want a medal, ma'am. I want to sleep for about a week without dreaming about targets and wind calls and shots I almost missed. Hendricks studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, Carmichael, back off. Everyone back off. Carter's done for now. She gets rest, privacy, and time to recover. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. The crowd dispersed slowly. Marcus led Emily away from the landing zone toward the quiet of the barracks. Devlin, Walsh, Rodriguez, and Chen followed, forming a protective barrier around her. We got your back, Walsh said quietly. Whatever happens next, whatever you decide, we got your back. Emily stopped walking and turned to face them. Why do you care so much? I'm just some kid who can shoot. You're not just some kid, Rodriguez said. You're our guardian angel. You saved my life in Al-Rashid. You saved all our lives multiple times. And more than that, you showed us what dedication looks like, what pushing yourself to impossible standards looks like. You inspired us to be better. I don't feel inspirational, I feel broken. Being broken doesn't mean you're not strong, Chen added. It means you've been through hell and survived. That's courage. Real courage, not the fake Hollywood version. And we respect that. Emily looked at each of them in turn, then at Marcus. Sir, I think I need to talk to Dr. Borison. Like right now. Because I'm having thoughts about never picking up a rifle again, about walking away from all of this, and I don't know if that's healing or if that's running away. Let's go find out, Marcus said. But Carter, whatever you decide, you have my support. If you want to walk away, I'll support you. If you want to come back after arrest, I'll support that too. Your life, your choice. They found Dr. Morrison in her office. She took one look at Emily's face and cleared her schedule immediately. Marcus left them alone, trusting Morrison to help Emily find whatever answers she needed. The team assembled in the rec room, processing their own emotions from the mission. The base was celebrating people who didn't know how close they'd come to death going about their lives normally. But Marcus's team knew. They'd seen the trucks, seen the explosives, understood that they'd been minutes away from catastrophe. She's going to leave, Devlin said quietly. After this, after everything we have asked her to do, she's going to walk away. I can see it in her eyes. Maybe that's the right choice, Walsh replied. Maybe we've been using her too hard, asking too much. She's 19. She should be in college worrying about exams, not making life or death decisions every week. But we need her, Rodriguez protested. How many missions succeed because of her abilities? How many people stay alive because she can make shots nobody else can make? That's not her problem, Marcus said firmly. We don't get to keep her just because we need her. If she wants out, she gets out, and we figure out how to operate without her. We survived before Carter came along. We'll survive after if she chooses to leave. Chen looked at Marcus. You really mean that you'd let her go? I'd hate to see her go, but I'd hate to see her destroyed by this job even more. So yes, if she needs to leave to preserve herself, then she leaves with my blessing and my gratitude. They sat in silence, each man alone with his thoughts. Emily had changed their team in the brief time she'd been with them. Changed how they operated, changed how they thought about what was possible, changed their standards for what exceptional looked like. Losing her would leave a hole that wouldn't be easily filled. But some things were more important than tactical capability. Emily's well-being, her mental health, her future. Those things mattered more than mission success rates or operational effectiveness. At least, they should matter more. Marcus hoped he had the strength to actually live by that principle if Emily decided to walk away. 3 hours later, Emily emerged from Morrison's office. Her eyes were red, but clearer than Marcus had seen them in weeks. She found the team in the rec room and sat down among them. Dr. Morrison and I had a long talk, Emily said quietly, about pressure and expectations and whether I'm staying in this job for the right reasons. She asked me what I would do if I couldn't be a sniper anymore. If the gift went away or I lost it somehow, and I realized I didn't have an answer. I've defined myself by this ability for so long that I don't know who I am without it. So what did you decide? Marcus asked. I'm taking the month off like you ordered. Going to use that time to figure out who Emily Carter is when she's not behind a rifle. Maybe I'll discover I can't imagine doing anything else and I'll come back stronger. Or maybe I'll realize I've been destroying myself trying to honor a promise that was never meant to be a prison. Either way, I need to know. Devlin reached over and squeezed her shoulder. Whatever you decide, we support you. You've given us more than we had any right to ask for. Nobody here would blame you for walking away. What if I come back? Emily looked around at them. What if I take this time, heal, figure things out, and decide I want to keep doing this? Would you still want me on the team? Are you kidding? Walsh laughed. You're the best sniper any of us has ever seen. Of course we'd want you back, but only if it's what you want, not what you think you owe us or your grandfather or anyone else. Emily nodded slowly. Okay, then I'm going home, back to Wyoming for a month. Going to visit my grandfather's grave, spend time with my family, remember what normal feels like, and then I'll decide. She stood up and Marcus walked her to her quarters. She packed her personal items methodically, folding clothes and organizing gear with the same precision she brought to everything. The rifle case sat on her bed and she stared at it for a long moment before carefully setting it aside. I'm leaving the rifle here, Emily said. If I take it with me, I'll be tempted to practice to maintain the edge. I need a complete break. Smart choice, Marcus agreed. Carter, before you go, I want you to know something. You came to this team as a rookie who nobody believed in. You're leaving as the most decorated sniper in this theater and one of the finest operators I've ever had the privilege to work with. Whatever you decide about your future, you have already accomplished more than most people do in entire careers. Be proud of that. Emily smiled slightly. I'll try, sir. Right now, I'm just tired. But maybe after some time away, after some perspective, I'll be able to see what I've done as an accomplishment instead of just survival. That's all any of us can hope for. Emily left the next morning on a transport headed back to the States. The team assembled to see her off, each man offering quiet words of support and gratitude. When the transport lifted off, Marcus watched it disappear into the sky and wondered if he'd ever see Emily Carter again. Devlin stood beside him. Think she'll come back? I don't know, but I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, whether that's here or somewhere else. The days that followed were strange. The team ran the operations without Emily adapting to life without their guardian angel. They succeeded more often than they failed, but Marcus noticed the difference. The missions were harder, the margins slimmer, the risks higher. Emily had made them better, safer, more effective. Her absence was felt. 3 weeks into Emily's leave, Marcus received a message. Brief to the point, pure Emily. Visited grandfather's grave, told him about everything. Think he would have been proud. Also think he would have told me to take better care of myself. Working on that. See you soon. Carter. Marcus smiled and showed the message to the team. She's coming back. How do you know? Rodriguez asked. Because she said, see you soon, not maybe see you someday. She's made her choice. The 4th week, Emily returned. She walked into the operations center, looking different. Rested healthy, the darkness gone from her eyes. She'd gained a few pounds, probably from eating regular meals, instead of surviving on adrenaline and coffee. Her hair was longer, pulled back in a neat braid. She looked, Marcus realized, like an actual 19-year-old for the first time since he'd met her. Permission to rejoin the team, sir? Emily asked, a small smile on her face. Granted. Welcome back, Carter. We missed you. Missed you too, sir. All of you. Emily looked around at the team. I did a lot of thinking over the past month. Talked to my family, talked to my grandfather's old Marine buddies, talked to Dr. Morrison over video calls. And I realized something. This job being a sniper, it's part of who I am. But it's not all of who I am. I'm also a granddaughter honoring a promise. A teammate who cares about the people she works with. A young woman trying to figure out her place in the world. And I can be all those things at once without any of them consuming me. Sounds like you found some balance, Walsh observed. Working on it. Dr. Morrison taught me techniques for managing stress, for separating my self-worth from mission success, for recognizing when I'm pushing too hard. It's not perfect, and I'll probably struggle with it, but I'm better than I was. Marcus felt pride swell in his chest. Glad to have you back, Carter. But we're making some changes. No more back-to-back operations. Mandatory rest between missions. Regular check-ins with Morrison. And most importantly, you get veto power. Any mission where you don't feel right, where the pressure's too much, you can say no without consequences. Deal. Emily extended her hand. Deal. They shook on it, and Marcus knew they'd turned a corner. Emily was back, but different. Healthier. More whole. And the team would adapt to support that would protect her the way she protected them. 2 days later, they ran their first operation with Emily back on the team. A simple reconnaissance mission, low risk, designed to ease her back into operational tempo. Emily provided overwatch from a comfortable range, made a few shots to suppress minor threats. Nothing extraordinary or pushing her limits. After the mission, she cleaned her rifle with that same meditative focus Marcus had always seen. But now she was humming while she worked, a small sign that she wasn't carrying quite as much weight. How'd it feel? Marcus asked. Being back out there. Good. Scary, but good. I was afraid I'd lost the edge during my time off. But it's still there. The ability to read wind, to see patterns, to make the shots. It didn't go away. Did you think it would? Part of me hoped it would, Emily admitted. Would have made the decision easier, but I'm glad it didn't. This is what I'm meant to do. I just needed to learn how to do it without destroying myself in the process. Devlin walked over carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Emily. Heard you made a nice shot today. Hostile at 1,200 meters dropped him clean. Felt rusty. Took me 3 seconds longer than it should have to acquire and engage. 3 seconds longer than your impossible standard, you mean? To the rest of us, that's still exceptional. Emily laughed, working on recalibrating my standards. Dr. Morrison says I need to accept that good enough is sometimes actually good enough. It's harder than it sounds. Most worthwhile things are, Marcus said, but you're making progress. That's what matters. The months that followed established a new rhythm. Emily ran operations, but with proper rest and support. She continued therapy with Dr. Morrison, learning to manage the pressure and maintain her mental health. She made incredible shots, saved lives, proved repeatedly that her abilities were as exceptional as everyone believed. But she also learned to be human, learned to laugh with her team, to take days off without guilt, to accept that she couldn't save everyone and that wasn't her fault. She visited her grandfather's grave every few months, talking to him about her successes and failures, feeling his presence in the skills he'd taught her. Rodriguez recovered fully and returned to active duty. The team grew closer, bonds forged in combat and maintained through mutual respect and care. They became more than a tactical unit. They became family. 1 year after Emily first stepped off that helicopter, doubted and dismissed by nearly everyone, Marcus sat with her on a ridge, watching the sunset paint the desert in impossible colors. "You ever regret it?" Marcus asked. "Staying in this job when you could have walked away?" Emily considered the question. "Sometimes. When the missions are hard and the pressure's intense, and I'm carrying weight that feels impossible. But then I think about all the people who are alive because I stayed. Rodriguez, who would have bled out in that factory. Dr. Chen, who would have been captured or killed. Those 15 children who would have been executed without someone to protect them. The 3,000 people at the base who would have died in that terrorist attack. My grandfather used to say that with great ability comes great responsibility. I hated that when I was young, thought it was unfair. But now I understand it. I have this gift, this ability to see what others can't see and make shots that seem impossible. Not using that to help people, that would be the real waste. Your grandfather would be proud of you." "I think so. I hope so." Emily smiled. "But more importantly, I'm starting to be proud of myself. Not just for the shots I make or the missions I complete, but for learning how to do this job without losing myself. That's the real accomplishment." Marcus nodded. "You've come a long way, Carter. From the scared kid everyone doubted to one of the finest operators I've ever known. You've earned every bit of respect you've received." "We've come a long way," Emily corrected. "This team, you gave me a chance when nobody else would. You believed in me when I barely believed in myself. You protected me when the pressure got too intense and helped me find my way back when I was lost. I couldn't have done any of this alone. That's what teams do. We carry each other." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, threats existed that would require Emily's unique talents. Missions that would push her limits and test her resolve. But she was ready now, stronger and healthier, and more whole than she'd been a year ago. The rifle that had seemed like a burden, like a weight she couldn't escape, had become something different. A tool, yes, but also a connection to her grandfather, a way to honor his memory and his teachings. The promise she'd made him was no longer a prison. It was a purpose she'd chosen for herself. Emily Carter had walked into the desert a year ago as an untested rookie with something to prove. She'd been mocked, dismissed, underestimated by nearly everyone who saw her. But she'd proven them wrong with impossible shots and unwavering dedication. She'd saved lives, completed missions, set records that would stand for generations. More importantly, she'd survived. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. She'd been tested to her breaking point and beyond, had stared into the abyss of burnout and despair, and had come back stronger. She'd learned that being exceptional didn't mean being perfect, that asking for help wasn't weakness, that her value as a person extended beyond her tactical utility. The SEALs who had laughed at her rifle, who had dismissed her as just a kid playing at war, now trusted her with their lives. They'd seen what she could do, had witnessed miracles made from mathematics and patience and extraordinary talent. They knew that when Emily Carter looked through her scope, when her finger touched that trigger, impossible things became possible. And Emily knew something too. She knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do with people who valued her for who she was, and not just what she could accomplish. She'd found her place in the world, had transformed doubt into certainty and fear into purpose. The 19-year-old girl with the homemade rifle had become a legend, but more importantly, she'd become herself, complete, whole, and finally at peace with the gifts her grandfather had given her and the promise she'd made to use them well. That was the real victory, the one that mattered more than any commendation or record or mission success. Emily Carter had found herself in the fire and emerged not just unburned, but refined into something stronger than she'd ever imagined possible. And that Marcus knew was the greatest accomplishment of all.